Boo CEO. He is really smurfing on Bard. I don't think we can say like he's the best Bard in the world because Carrier exists and that guy is just.
You could say it if you wanted. You can still say it. Yeah.
I won't, but I could. You're right.
Hello and welcome back to The Dive, driven by Kia Season 9, Episode 35, the Jumbo episode. It's totally packed. We have the 6th annual, sometimes semi-annual, sometimes splitual. But we're not consistent. With the Divey Awards! And we've also going to pack a Worlds Preview in. We're going to talk about some patch notes as well. We're going to talk about the promotion tournament.
Some drama.
Some cheaters. We're going to talk about all kinds of stuff. We're also going to have a special guest. Surprise special guest.
It's not a surprise because we want people to stay around and watch.
It's still going to be a surprise. The CEO of the Sentinels are joining the LCS. If you haven't seen the leaks. But let's get right into the Divey Awards. Number 1, the first and most important award always. Our pro most deserving of a pro award.
Of an award.
Yeah. Well, it's really funny because usually we actually have votes from the pros. Mm-hmm. But we were unable to include our question with Mark sending out, the normal ballots for collecting pro votes. So it's just us this time, and we're giving it to Darkwings. Congratulations, Darkwings. You are the pro most deserving of an award. There you go. Meteos, would you like to do number 2?
Yeah. Next, we have the Best Champion of the Split award. And I think it was a little challenging to split with Fearless, because there's not the same champs in every single game, but it does go to Rumble, which, it makes a lot of sense. He's
80% win rate, 20 picks in split.
Yeah, even on Red side now that they've fixed him.
Yeah.
I think that's so funny how that bug just existed for however long and nobody knows. I mean, I guess it makes sense people didn't notice, but Rumble's just been so strong, really staple pick because you can blind pick him and he doesn't have any hard counters, right? It's like people will go Galio into him or some other like random tanker or whatnot, but he's just been super strong. Combos really well with a lot of the other meta picks. A lot of the like game 1 drafts will be like Rumble, Wukong, Annie, and they just have that super explosive engage, and then a well-placed equalizer can just completely win you the game. So yeah, congrats Rumble.
He's been Rumble's been smurfing. We got Thanatos with 4 games of it, Doku with 5, Castle with 4. So it was getting spammed, and it was definitely owning. The next award, this is a special one, the Please Don't Leave Us award. And it's going to go to River. River, please, we need you to stay in the league. He's such a good jungler, man, and he's so much fun to watch.
I'm doing my part. I tweeted out about it, and River was like, all right, find me a wife.
Have you found the wife?
So I've been screening. I've actually got a lot of applications.
Yeah. Anything promising?
I am screening them at the moment. I'm only going to send River the best of the best.
Okay.
So if you haven't gotten your application in,
are you going to keep any for yourself?
There's still time. Nah, this is for River.
Okay, fair. Yeah, River. If you haven't heard, maybe going to military at the end of the year. We don't know 100%, but sounded like that was the plan. So hoping he'll stay around. Who knows? Maybe Sentinels would be willing to build around some of those 100 Thieves folks.
I heard that their CEO really liked having Meteos as their jungler as well. So, maybe there's some chances there. Our next award goes to the strongest laner. Who do you think is the strongest laner? It's Thanatos. I mean, Thanatos, people are always talking about Thanatos as being the best laning top laner. It feels like almost ever since he started playing. And that has just remained true. There's been, back and forth, who's the best overall top laner with him and Blippo. But I think it's been pretty close to unanimous that Thanatos is just the best laner.
Yeah, I think no one else could really win that. He's just got the biggest solo advantages, especially as top lane, because as we've seen throughout this year, last year, people really seem to like lane swaps. As soon as you think it's gone, they just try to find some other way to make it happen. But even still, I think Thanatos has shown that he's just the best out of all the top laners right now. When it comes to just sheer laning, almost any matchup, he'll be able to create advantages for himself. And Even though C9 didn't make it to Worlds, unfortunately, I think Thanatos still had a really good showing.
Yeah, he was honestly really impressive. I mean, as far as like all the laning stats are concerned, like he always is killing it. His average CSD at 11 was 11, or at 15, excuse me, was 11.7. He's up over 200 gold on average. He's up almost 300 XP on average. Like he is just so good at pushing advantages in lane, which is definitely one of the things I think that makes him really, really fun to watch. So congratulations to Thanatos. Next one, a prestigious award here, Best Game of the Split Award. And this one had a highlight moment that I think really pushed it over the top. 100 Thieves versus Shopify, the Quid Yone cinematic game, the 5-man Yone ult in that bot lane try brush over by tier 1 tower. That was just such a crazy, exciting game. And I feel like 100 Thieves has just kind of consistently given us these really, really fun games where they're so skirmish heavy. They're always looking for fights, and they create some like insane team fights as a result. You know, not only this, I think about the River Kiana game, or that was a really fun one as well. Like this wombo combo that they're able to pull off over by Baron Pit, and that was just a super, super entertaining game.
Yeah, that was a great one. I mean, the 5-man, I would say it was like a no setup ulti because it wasn't chain off anything, but it was kind of set up from the Palafox's Rise, getting everyone on his team to group up. Yeah. So, but that was just so sick. I mean, a 5-man ult, like that's just like that's straight out of a montage.
I also really like the comms listening that we got afterwards.
Everyone's popping off.
FBI is like, bye-bye. And then they all start chanting into.
Yeah, that was awesome.
I mean, the first reaction, too, they're all just like, oh, like they're all just freaking out. Like,
yeah, like they should, dude. If you're not pogging off at a 5-man Yone ult, like,
I mean, that's
what
the best
doing?
feeling, though, right? Like when you
everyone's gassing you up.
Yeah, and all your homies are gassing you up. Like, that's sick.
That's good. I mean, they've had great vibes. That'll actually lead into our next award, which is the best coach/player. And I don't know if it was too competitive this split, but it does go to Dokla as he came in. He came in as a coach and then he switched over to a player. And
he did that. And he was the only one to do it.
He was the only one to do it, but he did really well. It was super successful. He came in to a struggling 100 Thieves,
was he
really struggling
coach, though?
I mean, maybe not because
he couldn't turn it around. Absolute failure, committed atrocities as a coach to be able to get himself in as a player.
Maybe. Hard to say. But yeah, I've always been a huge Dokla fan since playing with him. And it's awesome to see him do well. And they're going to Worlds, and we'll see how far they can get on this crazy last dance they're having.
I would like to honorable mention Inspired because he is not technically a coach, but all of the other coaches and players always talk about how much he like coaches that team as well. But yeah, unfortunately, Dokla is the only one who actually had that title. Yep. Whether you say he's a successful coach or not, he was a coach.
He was a coach. You can't take that away from him. The next award, the Best Social Media Presence Award here. And this is going to be back-to-back awards for Big Dokes. I've got to say, it's been so fun. Like you said, you know him well. He's a really funny guy. I've gotten a chance to talk to him a lot over the years and played some games with him and stuff. And he is like really funny, has a great personality. In the past, I never felt like it actually came out when he was a pro. And I remember interviewing him. I think it was the first game when he came back, or at least first week or two when he came back, and he was just talking. We were chatting before because I actually was the first week because they had this Photoshop where they photoshopped his head onto FBI's body because they didn't have time to get like pictures with him before he was going to be put in, and he was just popping off about it, and he was talking about how this time around he just like wanted to do what he felt like he should have done in the past, basically, right? Which is just like be himself, have fun with it, like joke around, try to actually showcase who he is, be an entertainer and kind of build a brand instead of just thinking only thing that matters is just winning the games. And I feel like he's done a really, really good job with it. His interviews are really funny. He's really funny on Twitter. When you did an interview with him the other day and after every question he's like, wow, great question, Kobe. And they ask another question. He's like, wow, back-to-back great questions, Kobe. And then he asks the third question. He's like, wow, Yet another great question, Kobe. I don't know, just little things like that to me are so funny.
Yeah, he said, "I'm going to do this every time you interview me."
So we can look forward to more great questions.
You can look forward to more really, really good questions.
You just have to start asking him really horrible questions to see if you can get him to break.
So, Dokla, what was your bowel movement like this morning before the game?
Great question, Kobe.
Really great question. That brings us to our next award, the best celebration.
And it's not having a bowel movement.
We're no connection to what we were just talking about. But the best celebration from a player after an in-game play has to be the Quiggle, which is a two-parter because it took FBI spamming the in-game emote of Xayah, and then Quid on stage decided he was going to wiggle and replicate it and really got into it. And that is just another vote for like the vibes on this 100 Thieves team. When they were going on their last, the ever extended last job that they went on, they just they really got into having really good vibes and celebrating, and they were just kind of having fun playing League of Legends, and it came through on camera. It came through in the interviews and stuff as well.
Yeah, congrats to the Quiggle. The next award we have is the Atakhan Award, and this was a tough one. There's a lot of competition. Atakhan's this new objective, and not everybody has figured out how to approach it quite yet, but our winner is the Dig versus DSG Atakhan. That was
exquisite.
Some of the most crazy, unique gameplay that we've ever seen.
Unique,
Yeah, I don't think we'll ever see something like that ever again.
I don't think so. I don't think that's replicated.
Yeah, Dig was on Atakhan, I believe, and then just like completely lost their mind, all went off in different directions, and they managed to throw it quite hard.
Yeah. That's the one where they chased XU off. He went behind the dragon pit. It was a bottom side Atakhan.
Yeah, and then came back.
Well, I mean, it started even before that. Around. It was like
Shaden had gone off to try and solo the enemy AD carry or something, and he got killed.
It started with Dig support, like playing Poppy. He like flash stunned Kaisa and then ulted him out, and then like Sion went up, and they literally all went in different directions. It almost felt like there was someone in their comms just like screaming, creating chaos, because I feel like if you were in solo queue with no comms, it could not have been as chaotic as that. So they just completely lost their mind, all doing different stuff, and ended up in just a really, really beautiful throw.
Yeah, and the best part is that the enemy team wouldn't have even gotten the Atakhan, but two of them, while the rest of the team was losing their minds and everyone's going off in different directions, two of them continued to DPS it down, neither of which was the jungler, by the way. Neither of them had smite, from 4,000 HP down to in smite range. And so then when XU, by himself got chased back to the Atakhan, he was like, oh, I guess DSG get the Atakhan now. So that was just a happy little circus that we all got to enjoy.
Yeah, I think as an honorable mention, I think C9 deserves a shout out here too, because something about their Atakhans in that final series versus 100 Thieves was like just such a mess. It was every game somehow throwing at it. And I get it, it's a new objective. Not everyone's figured it out, but it was a little heartbreaking. Every game is like they had a 3K gold lead, and I'm like, I hope they got a big enough lead to tank this Atakhan throw that's coming up.
Well, turns out they didn't. The next award here is going to be the Chime Minister Award, and it's got to go to none other than the Kia Finals MVP, Busio. He is really smurfing on Bard, and he's starting to make a case for himself as just one of the best Bard players in the world in competitive play. He has been doing it international. He's been doing it regional. I don't think we can say he's the best Bard in the world because Keria exists, and that guy is just.
You could say it if you wanted. You can still say it. Yeah.
I won't, but I could. You're right. Keria obviously is out there, but that's the next target. Maybe if FlyQuest play against T1 and they beat them with the Bard smurfing on him, then we can start to make those bold claims. But Busio, I'm going to say best Bard in the West. This guy's been killing it this whole year. But his Bard really, to me, has become the signature pick where it's just this is the pick I think of when I think of Busio now. And he just makes magic happen on it.
Yeah. Definitely well deserved for him. We made multiple highlight reels of it, and we played it almost every single one of their games.
We're going to keep doing that.
The hardest carry award in the end is going to go to B-Boy's Ezreal because it was record setting. This is the most damage per minute that anyone has ever done in a professional tier 1 game. 1,800. It was over 1,800. We don't have the exact number, but it was over 1,800 damage per minute. And that was truly a bot lane carry game. I believe that was the one where, weren't they playing into a pike and he was styling on the enemy pike, like just kept on moving up. They were constantly being super aggressive in lane, constantly like arcane shifting forward over it, getting kills and winning through him.
Yeah, that was the one where I remember going into that game, he was up against like a Cho'Gath Skarner.
Pike, Cho'Gath, Skarner, Victor, Zeri.
Yeah, I remember because he just walked right up into the pike as he was channeling, and it just arcane shifts like forward over him, and they go for the kill and constantly.
Yeah, I mean, I think B-Boy had a lot of really crazy Ezreal games this split, so props to him. That was a well-deserved record. And the next game we have is similar. It's the Tried So Hard, but in the end, it doesn't even matter award. Which was another very good individual performance, but unfortunately this time it wasn't enough to get him over the finish line, and this one goes to Saint for his Aurora performance in their loss to FlyQuest, which was, I think he had 42% of his team's damage that game, and he was just absolutely popping off. He was gapping quad unbelievably hard, and then just, his team was a little bit too heavy, and despite being like full build before anyone else by like a lot, I think he had like a 5 or 6K individual gold lead on his counterpart. They just weren't able to win the game. So yeah, Hilo Hell.
Yep. Attempted 1v9, but failed the 1v9.
Yeah, the 9 were too heavy. Couldn't make it happen. The next one is the biggest Fumble award. Not one you want to get, but someone has to take it. And it's got to be APA on his 14-2 Ziggs loss. I will say, I think this is a whole team fumble. Definitely a lot of things went wrong, not just an APA thing. But this was that game against FlyQuest where they were monstrously ahead. They were over 7,000 gold up at one point in this game, with APA just like going around the map, killing like every tower, getting so much gold. And it was our Chime minister himself catching him out. He tried to base on a ward, and Masu spotted him, interrupted him, then used the Jhin ult, and was able to get him kind of low. And it looked like he was just going to be able to get away, but Busio like tunneled in, caught him, kills him, and then that started the beginnings of a kind of a big highlight play for Busio, where TL then all kind of get wiped. But that was one of those sad moments where it's like APA still has it on the Ziggs, but it felt like every time he came out on the Ziggs, they'd get a big lead, but then they would just lose, and they weren't able to to close it out. But this one was one that I remember watching it thinking like, it's a done deal. It's guaranteed. TL are going to get a big win here against FlyQuest, but nope.
Yeah. I mean, in order to fumble, you have to have the ball first. And his Ziggs is why they had the ball. Like, he would just crush these early games and get TL these big leads. But, yep, in the end, they did fumble. And in the end of the Dive Awards, our final award is going to be the I Am Still Scaling Award. And that is going to go to Disguised, because they're still scaling, still playing. Actually, they're playing as we are recording right now.
Yeah, this is Wednesday morning.
In the promotion tournament at the moment. And this promotion tournament definitely has a lot for us to unpack later as we get into the news, but the Disguised are going to get the I'm Still Scaling Award, and they're looking to try and scale back into the LCS and into that spot.
They absolutely are. I mean, again, we're recording this on Wednesday morning. This is going to be released on Friday morning. Yeah. And we will see how they have done. But I expect them to be able to qualify back through. I thought that they improved a lot in Split 3. Rahel and Darkwings, to me, made a really big difference for this team. It felt like it gave them some real carry threat. And I feel like this team is definitely good enough to get back in. And then I'll be excited to see what they can do next year. But hey, it might be egg on my face by the time this is out. Maybe they already got beat. Maybe they've already been knocked out. But definitely going to be excited to see how the rest of the promo relegation goes. a lot of drama surrounding this. We're not going to spend too much time because we have a huge episode we're going to have to get into. But basically, Riot, as well as a bunch of other game services, all were getting hit with some major DDoS attacks. Wasn't just a Riot thing. I heard it was like Steam and Epic. I don't know what the full list was, but a bunch of different game companies were all kind of getting taken out. And this happened in the midst of a DSG versus Estral series, where the series was constantly getting kind of interrupted, faced major delays, ended up getting to the point where they then had to push the series back to the next day. But during a very lengthy pause, 2 Estral players were caught on stream basically breaking the rules. Summit, you could see in the background of a player's cam because it's like they were sitting kind of like back to back across a room. So over, I think, Ghost's shoulder, you could see Summit's screen. And he opened up the stream where they're playing and was watching what was happening before the pause. So that's giving you information that you wouldn't otherwise have. That's obviously against the rules. You're not allowed to be interacting with other people outside of the game or to be watching the stream or anything like this. So he got caught. He broke the rules. Ghost, you could also see in the background messaging on Discord. I'm not sure if that was determined to be like to tournament admins or something that was allowed, because Riot has obviously reviewed all this. And traditionally how they do it in studio, I'm not sure exactly what the setup is, if it's the same as online, but in studio we have this thing called shadow play where it basically records every input on the computer as well as everything that's going on the screen. So they use that, like, if someone reports a bug, you can go back and see, okay, well, was it a bug? Did they actually press the button like they said they did, etc. So I'm assuming it's a similar situation where they could review everything and make sure that Ghost didn't do anything wrong. But as a result, Summit was punished with a suspension. Estral was allowed to field a substitute, but they did end up losing the series, which is obviously pretty devastating for them because they did try to basically build a super team to qualify back in, right? You have a world champion with Ghost. You have Summit, who's a former MVP, who's been in a lot of the big leagues. You had Winsome in there. You have some of the LLA GOATs on the team. And so they had a really stacked roster, and obviously it is a pretty devastating blow, but like at the end of the day, he was cheating. He got caught. Of course you should get disqualified. Like, of course you should get suspended.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's one of those things where when I saw it, I was like, what are you doing? Why would you do that? Right? It's like, because I know every time I've played a remote match, they do have software that you're talking about that like records your screen, everything that you're doing. So it does make me wonder. It's like it got noticed because of the way their monitors were set up, like being in the background of another player's monitor. And I think Cubby, like the caster, called out that like Summit was on YouTube looking at looking at the VOD. So definitely kind of crazy for a player to be doing that, and hopefully they have their like the shadow plays and whatnot to make sure no one else is doing that, because if it was only caught because of like
webcam,
seeing it on a monitor, it's like hopefully people whose monitors aren't visible are not also doing similar stuff. So pretty unfortunate there, but I've been watching all these promo tournament games and it's been pretty cool, even though this is actually the second team that's had to field a sub, which really sucks. Conviction, which was the
TF Blade team.
Yeah, they were the streamer team, basically. They didn't have Cat Evolved for the tournament, so they ended up having to have Viper play mid lane for the tournament and then bring in Cody Sun as their sub. And they actually almost beat Estral with that roster, but it was kind of crazy because Viper is like a top lane Riven main
who's bot laner.
Yeah, turned AD carry and then playing mid. Like it's basically like the autofilled team, and they had like some crazy stuff going on. I think one game they had like Cody Sun playing Orianna mid, Viper was playing like Vayne top, and then TF Blade was like Gragas bot. So the fact that they almost won playing like basically full fill was kind of funny, but unfortunately they didn't make it. And then Luminosity has also been looking really good. So it's been a fun tournament, and we're going to see if Disguised has scaled enough to be able to win their spot back, because like they did take Cloud9 to 5 games in the playoffs. They could have beat them, and then that's a lot of improvement since the start of the split where they were just not winning a single game. So I mean, we'll have to see. The match between Luminosity and DSG is going on right now as we film this, but obviously by the time the episode's out, we'll know who's won that. But yeah, I think one of those two teams will win. They seem quite a bit better than everyone else, and then whatever team qualifies, it'll just be like the age-old question of, okay, you were the best tier 2 team. How do you do against the pros? Because there's always a huge jump between tier 2 and tier 1. And it is kind of cool for having these relegation tournaments, because I always like it when, you know, even if you're the worst team in the LCS, if you're last place and you don't win many games, that could still mean you're better than all the tier 2 teams. So getting to see teams in like a slightly different light, see them get some wins over the lower competition is always good for them.
And I do think that Disguised is like a pretty good transfer of being able to compare LCS teams to tier 2 teams, because you know, talking to the teams at LTA finals, you know, FlyQuest and 100 Thieves and stuff, been scrimming DSG, and they were like, yeah, DSG is really good scrim partners. Like they truly are scaling up. That like they won that I'm still scaling award, but like they have been constantly scaling. And so, yeah, that competition is definitely big. I will say it is like crazy that all this, you know, all this stuff is happening, like you're saying, with multiple teams having to field subs and the cheating scandal and playing online and stuff. It actually brings me back to like the original League of Legends, you know, way back in the day when we all first started, and it was like grassroots stuff and all these online tournaments, and there's so many things can go wrong, and there's DDoS attacks, and there's like, oh no, you know, this internet issue or that, or it's like crazy.
Except Skypes.
But the rewards for this, like the are so huge. So I think that's one of the huge differences, is that this is, you know, for an LCS spot. And so like there's a lot on the line. So when stuff like this happens, it's truly so meaningful for like the players, individuals, and for the organizations overall.
Yeah, I mean, promo relegation was always one of my favorite parts of the year. You know, with LCS, like having that tournament at the end of the year, because it just felt so insanely high stakes, right? That it's like you were literally out of a job if you lose this, and the difference between being, you know, stuck in tier 2 and actually making it to the LCS is complete night and day. You know, as far as like the amount of money the players can make, as far as the opportunities that can come with that, as far as the audience that is watching you, it is really something that can like make or break a career. So it always just felt like it was so high pressure, and I always liked the idea that, you know, these players can build a team and kind of like force their way into the league, right? Like you can say, you know, it's like we actually are better than the bottom of the LCS. We just don't get a chance to prove it. And this is your opportunity to kind of prove that. So it's always been a lot of fun. And I'm definitely excited to watch the rest of that tournament as it's going on. But Worlds right around the corner, patch 2520. The patch notes are out. They're a lot smaller than some of the last couple patches. They usually do this as they get up towards the Worlds patch, as they kind of like slow down to stabilize things a bit. Any big takeaways from you guys?
Yeah, they're targeting me. It seems really personal here with another back-to-back Volibear nerf.
Mm-hmm.
It's me and my boy Skewmont. We'll talk about G2 later, but he's a knower. You know, he recognizes the Volibear power, and apparently so does the balance team. And so yeah, Volibear's getting another nerf. Again, the last one was so small, I literally didn't even care about it at all. This one is a bit bigger. I still am not too sad about it, honestly, even though it is another one aimed at Volibear. Because, like I said last time, the AD builds are not that far off of the AP Cosmic builds anymore. And you can definitely still do, especially in pro play, you can still do the AD builds or tankier builds too. So, yeah, this is going to tap him down a little bit for like the biggest case that is most played and most extreme with the Cosmic Drive, lethal tempo and stuff. So a little bit of your AP scaling. But besides that, the actual pro hitting ones, Wukong is a big one to me, because Wukong, I feel like it's just been one of the best, if not the best jungler for a while here, because his team fighting is so good. And these changes, they don't kill him, but messing with the W cooldown. Okay, so there's 3 changes. You know, they're reducing a little bit of your AD ratio on your Q. Yeah, like it's sad, but it's not game breaking. Your E is actually going up in base damage. But the W cooldown, this is one of the things that first brought him back into the jungle. A very long time ago when they buffed the W cooldown, and it was like an extreme buff, I remember. It was like almost 6 seconds or something like that. And really started getting him popular. This one is just re-increasing it by 2 seconds. So I'm going to have a pretty close eye to see if he still like remains, as crazy high priority or not. But he is a pretty big part of the AD jungles and like the early champion select priority that has gone on in pro play. The other one of those that's getting changed here as far as jungles is the Pantheon, who was a lot of people's minds got killed off because they took too much monster damage out. And so this one is kind of going halfsies and putting a bit of that monster damage back to keep him around. And I do think Pantheon is a really cool jungler with a semi-global as well as the directional immunity. You can say the point and click stun is really easy to use. And
yeah, I was gonna say I don't know if pro players playing right now would call him a cool jungler, because I do know that like the amount of pressure you have, especially around objectives, and I think Grub specifically, when Pantheon has his first ult, it becomes extremely stressful to play against him because he's threatening everything basically. If he's standing mid, he's threatening a dive on either side lane or ulting to show up to the Grubs. And so if you compare it to Nocturne's range, Nocturne has to like actually be there to ult you, whereas Pantheon can ult you from super far away. So definitely annoying, especially because once he shows up, there's not a lot of room for outplay. Like he just kind of kills you. And so, we'll see. I'm not really sure how this affects his first clear speed or whatnot, but I assume if you can get through your first clear without, being like 4 minutes or whatever, then he'll still probably have a place. But I mean, I think the fact that because the last nerfs before they brought it back this patch were pretty huge. Yeah. And I don't know if he would have been played on that one, but yeah, we'll see. I think the Orianna nerfs are the other one that really sticks out to me as being kind of big, because they're taking a lot of damage off of her W, like from the rank ups, which I think a lot of people, will do like 3 points or EQ and then W max, and it will affect her wave clear a lot. And especially because they're upping the ratio a little bit from 0.7 to 0.8, but they're taking like 40 damage off of her max rank W, going from like 270 to 230. So that will affect her wave clear breakpoints, when you can just QW the range minions and kill them. I think they're trying to make her not as incentivized to do this like Rod of Ages build, because it is always weird, when I talked to Pobelter on the co-stream, he's like a mid lane mage purist where he hates seeing Victors and Oriannas come back to lane with 2 ruby crystals, and it's just like, okay guys, what are we doing here? Like you're a mage and you're building tank. So I think trying to nudge her back in that direction. We'll see how much it actually affects it, because I think Orianna has been probably the strongest mid lane so far this past split. Yeah. So I assume she'll still be strong, but maybe her lane phase will take a hit, especially for these tankier builds.
Yeah, that's the big question is, does it actually push the needle enough so that Ori's getting punished too much early, and it becomes less popular as a result? They also touched Azir in kind of a similar way, right? Where the idea is to give more late game scaling, better rewards, but to make the early game more difficult. The W changes, I think, are actually pretty big for Azir. Not only are they lowering the AP ratio at the low ranks, but the recharge rate is actually going up as well. So it's 12 seconds at rank 1 instead of 10 per soldier that you're summoning. But also the damage to additional targets is getting nerfed. At base, previously, it was 25% at level 1, and then when you hit 6, it would go up to 50. Now it's 20% until level 8, then an additional 8 per level. So to be able to actually get back to where you were, it's way slower. You have to be basically level 12 to get to where you were at level 6 before, as far as like additional damage, like the pass-through damage. So I think it actually could be pretty impactful as far as the amount of wave clear. Because if these champs get lane locked, like if their wave clear is hurt enough that they are getting lane locked and actually punished and having to take bad bases, then that's pretty huge. I'm just not sure if it pushes the needle enough to actually accomplish that at the pro level, and probably not. I think people will probably still play it because it's such comfort. Yeah, but I do like the approach either way.
I feel a little bad for mid laners who have to play Azir, because I think these nerfs always feel the worst, where it's like, so the reason Azir is good is because his late game is so insane, right? It's like, once Azir gets to 2 items, he is just an absolute menace, and he out-DPSs any other mid laner while also having a lot of safety from his E and playmaking from his ultimate. So he's just kind of this late game powerhouse. And they're castening him basically, where they just make his early game so unbelievably bad and unplayable that you won't even be able to get to where you're strong late game. And I think those changes always feel pretty bad. I think if I was an Azir player, I would much rather prefer to like give up some of my OP late game power or like his safety. I've always thought his being able to slide away from everything was a little too strong. So if I was an Azir player, I would much prefer to give up some of that stuff rather than just like, okay, your early game numbers are just going to be hammered down more and more and more until you can't actually even play this character. It's like it's not going to be a problem because you can't navigate him in team fights. It's going to be a problem because you cannot lane and you can't do anything, and you'll regret picking him at all. So I think if I'm a pro mid laner, it's like, I'm still going to probably have to play him, but it's just going to feel horrible. And it's just going to take even longer to get to the point where you're super OP. So
it's interesting.
We'll see how it turns out in pro play.
I feel like it's like there's champions like this that if you have insane scaling and insane wave clear, then you're just broken, right? Because it's like, oh, you're so weak if you trade, but you just fight the wave and never interact, right? So like I can definitely see both sides. I feel like with Smolder, they kind of did more what you're saying, where they like made Smolder stronger earlier and then took away a lot of the scaling power, right? Where it's like, so you don't have to be so crap early, but your late game isn't as powerful. But then there's still champions that like Kayle, for example. Kayle is just so god awful early that it's so punishing in so many matchups, right? And I feel like because you have no wave clear, that is what makes it really difficult. And some players I do think like that idea of like, all I have to do is survive, and if I can actually navigate this properly and not go down that far, then I get to be really OP. So to me, there is room in the game for those kind of champions, but it definitely can be frustrating to play them, in these bad matchups for sure.
Personally, just as a player in League of Legends, I do agree with the philosophy of I don't like these extreme scaling champions, because if it is a super extreme champion, then at the beginning of the game, that player can't play the game. And then at the end of the game, you can't play that game against that player. And so I feel like regardless, there is going to be a lot of fun lost, and the net fun lost does not compensate
Funometer
for one player, getting to kind of have this like, it almost feels like crutches. It's like, okay, yeah, like I'm not a very good player anyway, so I'll just play this thing that's totally bad, and then no one will blame me for like being bad early. But then if I somehow get late, then I'm Giga God, and that's just what happens. So I think in a general philosophical, approach to the game, I don't think there should be things super extreme. There should be differences though. So finding the point where it's like an acceptable.
Yeah,
level.
you're right. It's like the range of how strong or weak you are, because I think. I totally agree with you, and I think part of what makes it hard in League to have these extremes is because it's a team game, and so oftentimes, like, if I'm jungling and I have a caster in mid on my team, he's not really the one having a bad time. I'm the one having a bad time because all of a sudden, like...
Cassidy's also having a bad time.
Probably.
But they're weirdos, and they're like, well, just don't fight or do anything for 30 minutes. Didn't you sign up to play a video game and not do anything for 30 minutes?
I think this is more relevant in pro play and higher ratings where...
like playing with Cassidy.
Yeah, because, like maybe in lower elos, you pick Cassidy, the guy picks Ignite Zed and just solo kills you 10 times. But in higher ratings, it's like... The weak early game people understand how to avoid dying and scale up. And so, but what they concede is their lane pressure. They just don't push, and they let themselves be pushed in the whole time. And then that enables their opponent to move around the map and invade the jungle or dive the side lanes. I think bot lane players like AD carries could probably relate to playing with like a Yuumi or a Sona in lane, where yes, this champion will be stronger later, but like you are not getting to play the game. It's like, okay, I blind pick Jhin because I'm first pick AD carry. Oh, I got a Sona. Oh, Draven Nautilus. GG's, guys. I don't think I'm playing this one. So I think that part always makes it a little tough in League to have these like, champions whose weakness is that they can't play the game early because it's such a team-reliant game. And it's like, okay, now the burden kind of is falling on everyone else who didn't sign up to play with this thing rather than like the guy who's actually weak. So yeah. I totally agree with you on that.
I did want to say, back on your point on Orianna too, and like mages building more tanky. It's interesting because Fizz here is getting like the opposite direction buffs. Well, they say that they're going to be positive power. We'll see about how it ends up. But they're doing the thing where and Fizz is melee, so it does kind of make more sense where they're making base damage is higher and then AP scaling's lower. But if you remember, there have been points in League of Legends where like Echo or Fizz or stuff could go like tank, and like build tank and still have enough base damages to kill or put tons of pressure on backliners. These ones don't look like the numbers are completely out of line or anything.
Sunfire, Spirit Visage, Fizz Top.
But I'm people who are old like remember some times when there were extremes.
Echo, Fizz.
Yeah, where you can build
everybody.
tanky.
Yeah. Everyone is building.
But I will say that these do look to me like, maybe I do want to do some like AP Bruiser Fizz. I don't have to build full glass cannon because I'm not all AP ratios and I do have better base damages. So I don't know. I think it's kind of a cool way to see, is there an avenue where a champion like Fizz that we have not seen in pro play for a long time, maybe since like Westdoor or something, is getting those changes. Graves as well is getting the similar kind of treatment where he's getting bonus AD reduced, but base damage is increased. Personally, I do play Graves when he's strong. He's not one of my favorite champions, but if this makes him really strong and Bruiser Graves is just going to, be able to power farm and bully people, then I will do it. I don't know, Meteos, if you get excited by Graves or
not. I don't like Graves when he's strong just because I like playing Rek'Sai. So anytime Graves is that guy who shows up in every game, I just start banning him because it's not that I can't beat Graves, but he's just really annoying to play against due to his playstyle of he's either going to cheese me level 1 or 2, which I don't like because you just can't fight him. There's almost nobody who can. Or he's just going to full clear his jungle with 8 stacks of True Grit the whole time. So I can't invade him, or he's going to have 200 armor and just stat check me. So I'm not a massive fan of Graves. Personally, I find him kind of boring, but obviously he is really popular, so people like him, and he's been kind of weak, so makes sense to give him some love.
Yep. Last thing to touch on really quickly is just that the top lane lane swap detection, they're extending that from 3 minutes to 4 minutes. So it's back, I think, to what it was initially, or maybe even higher than what it was initially. But trying to
it was just different rules initially. So
true. But then they did the second one was the time change as well, right?
Yeah, and it hasn't been 4 minutes, so
yeah.
I mean we'll see on it. Go ahead. How do you feel about it?
Well, I mean, I just think I think it's good personally. Obviously, people are still going to can still do the AD carry lane swap top, but mostly people are doing that and then moving their support up to top to then make it a dual lane a lot earlier. So this doesn't stop your Kai'Sa from going top and laning 1v1 against the enemy top laner, but does stop your support from getting up there and helping until a little bit later. So I think the idea is to try to get more of those 1v1s and 2v2s as they're intended. I'm not sure it's going to accomplish that, but it will definitely make those swaps potentially more risky because the AD carry has to lane solo up top for longer, and maybe the top laner gets some levels, going to threaten them or something.
Biggest window to me is that it means that you can actually affect it as a jungler. Because even though difference between 3:30 and 4 minutes is only one more minion wave to play on.
Well, it's 3 to 4. So
it's a
minute.
Yeah, 3 minutes to 4 minutes, 2 more minion waves to play on. It gives a lot more opportunity for jungle because jungle you'll be able to even not have to sacrifice efficiency, and you can do full clears and still affect it. And 3 camp ganks are also becoming more popular, so it does give a pretty big window for jungle to affect it, I feel like.
I think it'll also open up that window where, so normally the way it's been going now is the AD carry will go top, and melee tops, you can't really do much to an AD carry in the first few levels because they're ranged and you have one spell. Yeah. So normally the play pattern is they build a wave and then they crash the third wave, and so then the 4th cannon one will bounce back, and by then the support's there. But I think now, and usually in range versus melee matchups, that's kind of how it goes. And then on that bounce back is when the melee champ can actually play the game because they have all their abilities and they'll have a wave building up. Yeah, and they can try to fight the ranged champ. And they'll also have TP, so they could TP back if they need to, whereas AD carries don't really run it. And so I think that'll give them maybe a little bit more window to try to punish the AD carry for doing that. But I kind of agree with what you were saying, Azael. I don't think it's really going to be enough to stop this because if there's one thing I know about pro players is they will do anything in their power to not have to lane against their opponent if they don't have to. So you can't really fault him if it's a good strategy. Pro players are going to do it, but as a viewer, I find it so boring when there's a lane swap. You know, we want to see the best players at Worlds playing against each other in their roles. Like, I want to see top laners versus top laners in these matchups, because I've been wondering lately, like, Ambessa's been such a high prio top laner, and I'm like, how are you blinding Ambessa with Renekton up? That matchup is so bad, but you're not even playing that matchup. You're just avoiding it the whole time. So I guess that's how they do it.
Yeah, it makes the drafts, I don't know. Some people are like, oh, it's better for drafts because then you can pick matchups and avoid them. But personally, I think that makes draft less interesting to me because I like counter picks being a big thing.
Yeah.
And I like that strategy. I feel like if you have a way in the game to then get around that strategy, then you're removing part of the strategy from the drafting itself anyway. But then people will always say, oh, well, you know, I want to be able to play this and options and stuff.
Well,
so.
Too bad. Top laners aren't allowed to have fun.
If the way you play it is not laning against people, then I would argue nobody's playing. You're just like solitaring it up. So yeah, any change that tries to combat lane swaps, I'm all for, because I want to see some action.
Absolutely. So with the patch out of the way, it's time to talk some about Worlds. We're not going to have time to go in depth on every single team. Obviously, we're not going to be recovering the North teams, the LTA teams in general, because hopefully if you're watching this, you've heard us talk about them a lot. But we are going to at least touch on all the other regions. I think we should just start with the LCK, because LCK to me is looking incredibly dominant over these last couple of years. Last time the LPL won in the international tournament was back in the JDG run, where they were on their golden run with the MSI win that they had with Ruler. So it's been a while. We can start at the top. Genji, Keen, Canyon, Chovy, Ruler, and Duro. They are looking incredibly good. I think they're pretty much everyone's favorite. It's fair to say going into Worlds. So the one thing I will say, if you haven't been watching much of Genji, I feel like Duro has been like such a pleasant surprise with like how quickly he has really gelled with the team and how fast this guy has improved. His Blitzcrank is a big standout, but just in general, I am so impressed with how he's been playing. Like, it's him or Carrier for best support in the league right now, in my mind. And he has just really fit this team so incredibly fast.
Yeah, I mean, what's super cool is they had an interview with Arnold, the CEO of Genji, and he was talking about how he was surprised. And like, so even Genji, you know, they were in the position where they're like, oh, okay, yeah, like we've got this mega super team. Do we really have to go super crazy and find like the very best support to have the last Infinity Stone? Okay, we'll just get Duro. And then over some time, Duro just comes out and he's like, wow, Duro is another Infinity Stone in this gauntlet. Like, he is actually playing that well that he is deserves this spot on this like star roster. And so it is super cool, especially because, you know, him, like his interview on stage at MSI and stuff, like he's feeling confident. He's, really has everything to back it up. So I think that's a super positive story. For me, one of the sad things as a big Canyon fan, and Canyon will always be my jungle goat no matter what, but he is not playing at his peak right now. It doesn't mean he can't play at his peak at this tournament.
He's farming.
Yeah, but that it's a little bit of a sad one. Yeah, because he's definitely not playing at his peak right now, but I still have confidence in my boy. It'll be fine. And this team obviously has a very good chance of winning the entire tournament and is probably the consensus of everybody to be the champions. If they do, it actually will just be so crazy for them, because Canyon, you know, he is always, people will discuss of like, oh, who's the actual jungle goat with accolades and stuff, you know, and you can be like, well, Bengi won, you know, Worlds so many times. And Owner obviously as well is especially right now is playing super insane. But like if this team wins, it's so big for like Canyon, Chovy, and Ruler's careers.
I feel like especially Chovy though.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I think for anyone who's not familiar with Genji, I mean, it would just mean they're not paying attention to like high level league at all, because this is what I feel like it's one of those rare examples of a super team that's actually working. Because I think a lot of time when you put like, because if you look at Genji, pretty much role by role, it's like the best possible player available in that role. It's like it's Chovy's team, Canyon, like you put them together, and yeah, they've just been stomping everyone, and they've been so consistently dominant. in LCK, like they won, I don't how many, like 20 something series in a row without dropping a game. Or I mean, they would drop games, but not an actual full match until obviously it had to be T1 to shut them down. But somehow, some way, Gen G has just managed to not find success at Worlds specifically. They've won MSI, they've won LCK a ton of times, but something about Worlds is just kind of like it's been a mental block for them. So I think a lot of eyes are going to be on them, obviously, because, you know, that's the one thing Chovy's missing, right? It's like he has gapped Faker so many times in LCK. People pretty much view him as the best laner, best mid, but he just hasn't ever won Worlds, and that's the one thing people always point to with his legacy right now. So they're definitely going to be pretty hungry for that.
And even though Kennen and Ruler have won Worlds, I feel like it's big for them because if they do, I think that I would say that they're the GOATs of their roles. I mean, yeah, I already think Canyon is, but I think it becomes way easier to argue against people that are, you know,
on the Bangy train.
Yeah, gonna bring up like actual, the trophy lists and stuff, and for Ruler as well. You know, he's already right up there as well. So if you get a Worlds here,
it's huge.
I feel like you might be able to solidify all those. Keen, though, we didn't talk about Keen.
I was gonna say,
and Keen has been so insanely good.
I think he's been their best player.
Yeah, and he's spent so long on a Freak of Freaks and Kwangdu and stuff. So it is just cool to see because that's the type of top laner that I feel like every jungler or most like teammates want, where he will play anything and he can play any style so well. Yeah. On the LCK broadcast, they were talking about him being a chameleon. And like seamlessly transitioning, between tanks and carries and stuff.
Goated on carries.
I'm like, yes, my top laner is not going to complain no matter what we tell him to play, type of thing, you know. And it's like, yeah, he's good weak side, he's good strong side. So
he's just such a complete player, and I think that's been really, really exciting to watch because he feels like he can just actually do everything at the highest level. I feel like every top laner wants to be able to do that or tries to be able to do that, but it's like, you even have these 6-man roster things right now where people are trying to be able to have players who can excel in different roles because it's so hard to find top laners that truly can play at the elite level on both tanks and carries. Almost impossible. And he's doing it all. And it has been really crazy. I will say, if someone were to beat Gen G, I think the way in which they would lose is like you could probably watch the KT series and see how some of the games can go bad. Like KT beating them was a big surprise. And to me, a lot of it is the inactivity of Canyon in the early games. He doesn't really do much of anything in early games. Even when he gets early game champs, like he's going to farm. And it feels like that is really kind of where they've been. I feel like Chovy took a little step back, I think, this year than compared to last year. But that doesn't mean he isn't still the best mid laner. Like, I just don't think he was as dominant this year. And I feel like as a result, their early games aren't nearly as dominant as they were, but their team fighting and their macro is so insane that it generally doesn't matter. Like this team does get behind in games. When you're looking at top junglers on other teams, like you mentioned Owner, I think he's been stellar. Teams can put them behind, but usually Gen G just wins anyway because they're so good at team fighting, so good at objective setups, so good at actually coordinating in the 5v5s. And then they also do some weird comps sometimes where they do like these drafts.
One single carry and like a bunch of tanks.
Exactly. Like one carry comps and stuff. They're so hard to execute, but because it's Gen G, you kind of default to trusting them because they keep making it work. So they do have some holes in their game. I do definitely think it's possible that they lose at Worlds. But to me, they're the big favorite.
Yeah, I think KT as well as T1 have shown, like if your jungler is performing really well and you can do like jungle mid in KT's case and have BDD, then you can actually have a chance to take them down. Because I feel like
coming into about KT then.
Yeah, let's talk about KT. I just wanted the last thing I was going to say was for Gen G going into MSI when everyone's crafting like, oh, obviously, they're tournament favorites, but how do you attack the best and the favorites? Yeah. Then it was, oh, you should attack the bottom lane. But I don't even feel like that's like even possible anymore. So good luck.
Yep, absolutely agree. KT, it was definitely surprising the way in which they got here because
you could say that.
Like the whole bracket got really upset when Gen G picked him. If you didn't watch a regular season in LCK, they had like basically I don't even know what they're actually called, but it's like group good and group bad, right? Like they basically had the two different separate groups, so they'd all play within that. And
Legend and Rise, I believe.
which is which?
Good as Legend, because Rise you got to go up.
Okay. So anyway, in group good, I think people were really excited, like, oh, we're gonna have all these banger back and forth matchups, and it basically just like the whole group just got tier listed out, where like Gen G would always beat everyone, T1 would beat everyone but Gen G, HLE would beat the people below them, and like KT was just kind of getting beat, right? And Gen G selected them. They ended up winning that series, which was like this huge upset, and then it put it in this weird situation where the like consensus 1-2 was Gen G T1, but both of them get upset. Both of them are in the lower bracket, and all of a sudden, you know, T1's the 4th seed. Gen G does make it back up and wins the whole thing again, but KT went on this kind of like wild run, and I feel like just really happy for BDD in particular that he is going to be back at Worlds, because this guy I think has been so incredible for so long, but he's just often not on the best teams, right? Like he, I feel like, is almost always, you know, one of the best, I don't know, top 5, whatever mid laners in the world. Sometimes he is playing like as the best mid laner in the world, but we just don't get to see him internationally nearly enough because his team feels like it just always lets him down.
Did you see how emotional he was when they qualified? Like it just like it clearly like obviously means so much to him as well. So yeah, I'm super happy anytime something like that is gonna happen for one of these players, and super deserving because he is just pumping out carry performance after carry performance. In there, upset versus Gen G. Obviously, I mentioned the mid and jungle because he couldn't do it alone. Cause
like a 20 KDA or something in that series.
Yeah, Cuz also was really popping off.
Yeah.
So Cuz is obviously a very big pivotal player for this team and how they're going to be able to operate as well. I feel like the bottom lane is like Doctem. People do look down on him, but he is really good, especially on a lot of the AD carries that a lot of people will consider more utility. That's not the only things that he plays, but that's
the only things you want him to play, though.
but like
Senna,
he's
Jhin,
really
Ashe,
good, on a lot of these,
Yeah,
and has been delivering a lot of like consistently good performances. Yeah, I mean, this is the team where people always meme on. You don't want to get excited about them because they have had just an insane history of either failing themselves or getting super unlucky with draws or both at the same time, or like just like it's just
the first Swiss year, 5 out of 5 Eastern teams that they had to play.
Yeah, it's actually just crazy with this team. So it's always really funny because the memes are good too.
Yeah, I mean, they've been a team that they have a ton of fans, even though I think Western viewers might not know them as well as some of the other teams because like all the other LCK teams going to Worlds were at MSI, right? Well, I guess was HLE? I don't know. Maybe not them, but I mean, they've been at all the international events this year and they're pretty well known, like HLE, Gen G, and T1. But I think KT is like, you might not know them as well if you don't follow LCK, but they have a lot of fans. And yeah, like you were saying, they are that team that's like, they've had a lot of good runs, but just through choking or getting really unlucky, they just don't manage to make it. So this year was massive for them. Yeah. And so we're going to have to see, because even though they did manage to like take out Gen G in the upper bracket for playoffs, which got in the Worlds, they did kind of get smashed by HLE and Gen G when they faced them again afterwards, getting like 3-0'd both times. So yeah, we're going to have to see what they can bring. I think most people probably aren't going to expect them to be like the strongest LCK team. I think they would probably ranked, I would say last by most people, or maybe third. But yeah, we're going to have to see it.
I think pretty much everyone, at least all the LCK casters, still consider them their 4th seed, even though they're not their 4th seed, just based on like the totality of the year. They were playing with Wei, but they brought in Peter, and I know some people are pretty negative on Peter. I think he's solid on engaged supports, but I also know that this is just like a big vibes team where like when the mood is good, the team is like can really kind of snowball and be on fire. I know there was like some comms and stuff that were released from the first win, like when they won game 1 against Gen G, and they were just like so pumped up in that series, and they're like, oh, we could do it.
Yeah.
And whereas it's like, if they then lose at the start, the team can get really down and kind of like lose that momentum and lose those good vibes. But Peter seems to be like a really kind of like good character with that. I do feel like the team is definitely the most beatable from the LCK as far as like if you're a G2 or a FlyQuest fan or whatever. If you're looking at it from that perspective, Perfect I think is just like he's fine. I don't think he's like that strong when you're comparing him to the top laners.
I'm definitely worried for Perfect.
Perfect I think is like pretty mid for LCK standards at the very least. And I think Dokdom, the fact that he can just mostly play the supportive style, I do think is limiting, especially if you're going deep in a Fearless series. So the team does have some clear weaknesses. And I just feel like they don't really beat top teams unless BDD has a heroic performance. Like he pretty much has to. Him and Cuz, I think, are the strong part of the team. The rest, I think, is kind of like just okay, at least for this level, for top LCK level. And they would still be a tough match, I think, for any of the Western teams, but they are definitely the most beatable. And like, I wouldn't be shocked if you told me that they like got a bad draw early in Swiss, got knocked down, got another bad draw, and then lost to a Western team, and we're just like, we're out really fast, But I also wouldn't be surprised if they make quarterfinals, so they'll be interesting to watch.
Yeah, for sure. The one thing I do like is that they've been loyal to Perfect. They brought him up through their challengers and are sticking with him. So the loyalty is good.
Yeah, I guess the next LCK team is one that we probably don't need to say too much about, but T1. The back-to-back world champions. I think 5-time world champs. Faker's team. I don't even know if much needs to be said about them. I think everybody who watches League, and honestly, people who don't watch League know about them and Faker. So I think the only thing that has me a little worried is that because they got 4th seed, they're in this play-in stage where they have to beat IG to even get to the Worlds bracket. So there's a world where they just choke one match and then we don't get to see T1 at Worlds, which is always sad because I don't know. It's like World Championship without T1. It's just...
It would be devastating for viewership, that's for sure.
It's not the same. It's not the same.
I will also say T1 is historically the weakest at the beginning of international tournaments.
They ramp up.
They usually have to scale up a bit. So it is a little bit nerve-wracking. I would still say they're heavily favored versus IG.
I hope so.
I think they should win, but upsets definitely do happen. And it's definitely on the table. As far as how they've been playing, though, Owner, as I brought up earlier, like has just been insane. He got a Jarvan pentakill. I think it was the first history of a Jarvan pentakill, and has been popping off in most of their games and just creating so much pressure. It feels like he's one of those Superman junglers that's just like wherever you need. He's fixing that lane, going to fix that lane, creating openings here. And so I definitely do still think that they are favored versus IG, but there's that exciting tension. Worlds play-in this year. If people are longtime viewers, they're used to play-ins, and like maybe they're like, oh well, it's like the warm-ups and so. No, we are starting like at a 10.
One elimination best of 5, that's playing.
Yeah, we're starting at full throttle here. A lot of these are probably the 2 most popular teams in the world, because IG the viewership they were talking about viewership stuff for IG, and the IG games were by far the most viewed of any games for LPL. They're so popular in China
they
because
have Rookie and TheShy back.
Yeah, because of the 2018 winning Worlds. And winning LPL's first Worlds, like there's so many beloved players on this team, and they have they're all previous international winners. It's just like that versus T1 at the beginning of the tournament is kind of crazy that that's play-ins now.
I mean, it's such a banger. You touched on it, but like Owner to me has just been so insane. I think it's probably like Owner or Tarzan, best jungler in the world right now. I think those guys are.
Kanavi pretty good too,
Kanavi's
buddy.
Really
Come on,
good.
bro.
Yeah, he is really, really good. But those would be my top 3. But I'm maybe a little bit more on the Owner and Tarzan hype trains. I feel like the meta fits Owner really, really well. Like all the fighters that he's godlike at are very strong right now. T1 is going to be interesting, right? Because there's always, I think, kind of the same types of questions about like, oh yeah, you see Faker lose lane all the time, but like, does it actually matter? Can they really punish it? Keria, I think, has just been so good for T1 for a lot. Like he does have some down moments, but like his Bard has been so insane to the point where it's just like basically has to get perm-banned against them now. I think a lot of people are going to wonder about how Doran is going to perform. I do think he played pretty darn well at MSI. And I think, should get some credit for that. But like Doran still has that stigma of, being someone who flops at international events. And I think a lot of eyes are going to be on Doran as a result. It's also, like you said, just T1 is normally the team that gets better and better and better. And their players have talked about this, how they are really good at adapting
changes.
Exactly. And realizing, okay, what is the meta? What are people playing? What is going to be good in that? What do we need to focus on for each and every day of the tournament? And constantly evolving their game to the point where it always comes to Worlds and you're like, well, you got to know T1 struggled here and there and this and that. And then it just never seems to matter at Worlds, right? Because they're so good at that process. But starting with like a best of 5 that is an elimination best of 5 right off the bat does make me a bit nervous. That said, I think IG is not nearly as good as what T1 has looked like. And T1 has been quite consistent. Like, yeah, they did drop the HLE in playoffs and did lose to Gen G in playoffs and stuff. But throughout like the whole group stage, they were basically beating everyone but Gen G. And they have kind of shown that consistency. So I'm expecting them to come in as heavy favorites in play-ins. And I'm expecting them to, again, be challenging for a world championship.
Yeah, I mean, Faker's doing his, drop a lot of CS, go affect side lanes, type of mid laning stuff, and going to focus more on playmaking since not the premier laner anymore. But yeah, we'll touch on it when we get to IG as well. Rookie's also definitely not in his prime.
No.
So.
HLE, last team from the LCK. Obviously, the big story here, if you're a T1 fan, Zeus is on HLE. They've had a bit of a kind of like rockier year than I think was expected. Obviously, they came out the gates really, really hot. Were able to go to first stand, win first stand. Then they kind of like crashed out of playoffs on the road to MSI, like very unexpectedly. They had looked really, really good. And I think the story about them is very different. Like if they don't crash out in playoffs, if they go to MSI, it's a totally different look. But because that happened, because they couldn't really get it together during the group phase as much, like they're constantly just losing all the time to T1 and Gen G, I think there were more questions about them. And I do feel like it's going to be really interesting to watch because Zeka to me has just been kind of hurt by Fearless. I feel like he hasn't been playing as well this year, and I do think Fearless is definitely part of that. Like he was so good. Also, partially it's the meta stuff too, because like he was really good on all the AD carries mid lane, and those are kind of out of the meta. A lot of his picks are more like niche and are getting taken away or kind of like banned out in Fearless. And just like even just in individual play, I feel like he's been struggling more. Zeus, I think, has still been pretty fantastic, but the team kind of has been more up or down. And Peanut, this is his last Worlds, so it's like his opportunity to be able to win a world championship, which has eluded him. And
the last Rocks Tiger still standing.
Yep.
It's gonna be retiring, he said.
Yep, it's very sad. But I think he's still playing well, but he's like very clearly changed his play style away from this like really carry guy, earlier on in his career to being very supportive, playing for the lane, sacrificing from himself, and really kind of trying to facilitate in that way. And he has incredible carries to play for. Like Viper is insane, Zeus is insane. So like they have these really good lanes to play towards. But to me, Zeka was the one that seemed to be struggling the most. And I think though Delight is good, I do think he is like more one-dimensional than some of the other top supports in the world.
Yeah, I feel like Viper's their best performer right now.
Yeah.
And like you say, Peanut is good at creating action and good at being like a utility player and stuff now. He definitely has had some bad games, and there was a period where he was losing a lot of smites, and he got better at some smites. But I think this team definitely is still going to be a huge threat, but it's just not the same as like first stand. They came in and they absolutely dominated, and we're just like, oh my god, HLE, they're the next coming of number one. Like it's insane. Now there's definitely a lot more questions. Yeah, a lot of them are around mid jungle. They seem to be a really momentum based team because even at first stand, like you were saying, they kind of won in style where they were picking some like really crazy stuff. Vladimir like, top counter. Vladimir, they're playing, I think, Kale, like Quinn, Zed with Ignite, like all this stuff that you just don't see in pro play. And granted, it was Fearless, but like they could have won playing Liumi jungle probably. Like they were not winning because of their picks. They were just kind of like brute forcing everyone. Granted, like it wasn't the toughest competition they've played in, but
Yeah, I mean, they just seem really momentum focused because they kind of went through a slump in the middle of the year where they were losing a lot and they didn't look that good. And then I think even in interviews they were saying like they lost a lot of confidence from losing. And I think just the style of player they have too, where like with both Zeka and Zeus, I think they're kind of like pop-off players who are most known for like being on carries and having really explosive fights. So sometimes if you have players like that and things aren't going well, like you won't look quite as good. So yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what we're going to get with them, but definitely a strong team.
All right, LPL, we can talk about BLG, number 1 seed. It's Knight. This guy, to me, like is kind of the heart of the team. This team has had a weird split and kind of a weird year where it's like being a jungler on BLG is like the defense against the dark arts teacher or whatever. You know, it's like they're constantly getting replaced. They're constantly getting.
But they're also coming back now.
Yeah.
So now they're just circling. You know, everyone always memes on like the jungler honeymoon period.
Yeah.
They figured out a hack, an infinite hack where they start with Beishuan, then put in Shadow, then they're gonna restart the cycle, and so they just keep getting more honeymoons.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. I mean, Shadow ends up being he's born in Italy, so you know he's Italian, and he's the first European to ever win the LPL. Like that's pretty crazy. Knight to me though is still just like the far and away the star of the team. This guy's been so insane. Now has 6 LPL titles, which is the record, I believe. And I just feel like he's playing at such an insanely high level. And has been for such a long time. Like he's so ridiculously consistent. He has the ability to completely change the course of a game, to take over games, to make those like crazy clutch plays that like you kind of associate, you know, like a faker type player with those momentum shifting games. I do think Bin has not been nearly as dominant in this year as a whole as Bin had been, you know, historically. Going in MSI, I think it was kind of the same story as well. But that being said, I felt like he had a really strong playoffs. And I do feel like BLG is kind of like clicking at the right time. And Elk, I think this guy has always been pretty stellar and is super consistent. I know have been getting memed a lot, but I feel like he was really quite strong in Split 3. So to me, like this team is
his biggest. MSI was just too crazy. I don't know. Like I found myself just hate watching On because
he had a really good Split 3.
On and off memes
I haven't watched as much LPL as other regions, granted, so I'm probably a little biased in this, but it was crazy watching MSI. Like some of those games he had were so reportable. So I don't know. I think of BLG as like a, you know, you don't know what you're going to get with them because people meme like on and off, but yeah, some of the stuff just seemed crazy. It's like I don't even know what you were trying to do with that one. Like, I don't know. So I'll have my eye on him.
Yeah, you got your eye on him. He definitely has been more on. I especially like some of the stuff like when you're getting deep into Fearless, then like his Elise is really good to do the late series Fearless Caitlyn Elise lanes go super hard. And there's so many teams that are still getting used to the difference between early games in your series and late games in your series with Fearless. I just feel like it's actually massive. And so when, you know, some people on your team have some champions that you feel so confident on, then it like gives you a direction for your drafts later on in series, which is kind of rare for some teams, you know, because you know, due to individual champion pools and stuff, sometimes it warps what your whole, you know, possible team can play. And I will say on the Bin stuff, Camille just got buffed on this patch. Jax got buffed on the previous one as well. So, you know, we could get some like actual historical Gigabin stuff, you know, coming out here. But yeah, the definitely most reliable and you know, strongest is Knight. Sometimes watching this team, you're just like, the side lanes are just insane. Like they have this like blood craze, you know, that's just like clogging their vision. And then Knight is going around like, solve this problem, solve this problem, everything, you know, or they're unable to, and then they lose the game. But yeah, it does so much. I mean, this team, I'm glad that this has become one of our mainstays at internationals because I love watching them play. Yeah, because they do have that you know, like attack-minded style, and Elka's also become one of my favorite AD carries to watch. Because I always liked the super aggressive AD carries that try and hands check people all the time. Yeah. And he does.
Yep.
Got good hands.
He does. He's got good hands. LPL, I feel like there's a lot of pressure on them this year because they haven't won in a long time. And LPL has also never won a Worlds in China, and it's in China. So I think there's huge pressure on the players to be able to get something done. Anyone's Legend, we can talk about them. If you want aggressive LPL style, I feel like that is this team. They basically just fight every single objective always. They're like LPL 100 Thieves to me, where they're just going to show up. Doesn't matter if they should. Doesn't matter if they hard outscale. Doesn't matter if they have vision. Doesn't matter if their items are done. They're going to show up and they're going to fight you. But I will say, like, their setups to the fights, I think, are better. And the way they play the fights out is really good. And you can kind of like see that thought process. But they are just like this wild team, and
I feel like they've gotten more like that this split than since like MSI as well.
I agree. Yeah. Tarzan, I think, has just been such a pleasure to watch. Though to me, Tarzan, I said it before, I think is maybe the best jungler in the world. Like him and Owner right now for me are kind of those 1-2 with Kanavi getting special mention as well. But I've always just found him so fun to watch because he can really pilot like anything, right? Like he can play all the styles. So I'm never worried about him regardless of the meta. Like if assassins are going to be good in the jungle, he's going to have a nasty Zed, Kiana, Talon, whatever. If it's going to be AP, he's going to be insane at Brand and Zyra and everything. Like he can play everything. And so I do feel like that really allows him to kind of sometimes like plug holes in the draft and like make sure the comp works, because no matter what you need, he can play something that fits the bill. And I feel like he has just been absolutely stellar.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And if Tarzan is like, this stellar shining star, I feel like Flandre makes it easier for everyone else on the team to play the game a lot of the times.
Glue guy.
He gets memed on a lot. Everyone's like, oh, he's the glue guy, or he's like the heart of the team, or he's the reliable old man that that you can count on. But he actually does a lot for this team. And especially when you're talking about objective setups and the way that they fight those objectives and they go through their fights, he provides. It's also another like definitely a buzzword and meme of like creating space or whatever. But he's creating space. But he knowing ranges really well. It's like it's always like one of the oldest things when people used to ask about like, oh, how do you tell like a good frontline player from a bad frontline player? And someone's like, a bad frontline player is easy because they'll just run in and int. A good frontline player, will tank effectively for your carries. But a great one won't actually even have to take the damage in the first place because they're intimidating you and like creating that space with their positioning and like holding abilities for right times and stuff like that. And so that's why I feel like, he does a lot of the times. So it's definitely a exciting team to watch.
Yeah. I mean, Flandre had a great Yorick. I feel like he was one of the people that actually piloted Yorick well, and he always used that panda skin. Yorick. Yeah, he uses the panda skin, which is like it feels kind of like if they won Worlds, that's what his skin would look like, because that's like their mascot. So that was always fun to watch. So I'm excited to see him. I mean, did they still have Tabby as their coach as well?
Yep, Tabe.
Yep.
People have definitely been questioning his drafts more since MSI than going into it recently. And yeah, that's all always conjecture, because it's always work between players plus coaching staff. But that is another question that people have had, for AL coming into Worlds and if there are going to be big changes in Worlds meta or not.
Yeah, absolutely. And if they're going to change how they want to play, right? Because they do just seem to like, I don't think you can get away with their play style of just like fighting everything against, a Genji or a T1 or whatever. If you're not choosing the right fights against those teams, you're usually going to get cooked. And that's kind of like my big concern for them. Going down the list, I have kind of like more concerns about the lower LPL seeds. Top, I mean, it's kind of a meme, but it's kind of not at this point. Like they just have such a history of all of these international chokes now. Where it has happened basically like 5 international tournaments, 5 different ones. There's like 2020 Worlds, I think 2022 Worlds, 2024 MSI and Worlds, and then 2025 they had the first stand flop that like was a total disappointment. And so this team does seem to just kind of struggle when they go international. And I'm not really sure why exactly it is, because when you watch them in the LPL, like they look good. And I feel like they're probably the best macro team in the LPL, right? And they play the map well. They play really smart. And you watch all these things throughout the year, and you're like, okay, this team is really good. They should be, considered a top team going international. But it's like, how many times do I have to think that and then see them flop international before I stop thinking that? And it's kind of weird, right? Because like my eyes are telling me this one thing, but now it's like I feel like I can't believe it anymore. And yeah, I'm just not really sure like what to think about Top and their chances going in, just because they've so consistently disappointed when it comes to international play. Like they clearly have really talented individual players. Kanavi, you were touching on, I think he's been insane. Like his early games are absolutely nuts. 369 seems to like, regardless of what the meta is, he's able to really succeed for his team. He plays tanks really well. He can play weak side. He can play strong side carries. Jackie Lev has insanely high highs. I do think he still has that kind of like Achilles heel of sometimes he's just going to int and lose you the game.
I feel like he gets caught. Especially recently, just keeps getting caught at a lot of times around mid, but just like at really bad times.
Yeah.
So I'm like, to me, it's not really an int, but it's like, come on, man. Like it's
not
always,
a good trait in an AD carry.
Yeah, it's always at such a bad time.
AD carries are not allowed to have bad deaths.
Yeah,
you're just cooked.
Yeah,
I mean,
some of the recent.
Yeah, if there's one role where you don't want to just randomly get caught and die, it's like. AD carry is not it. Like as support, sure, it happens all the time. Jungle, yeah, it happens. But even top lane, like those are the roles that are going to commonly get caught and killed. But AD carry, yeah, you're probably about to lose something massive if that happens.
Yeah, I do think it's fitting though that it's like, they're the third seed from LPL and KT Rolster is the third seed from Korea, because you have this feeling that you're talking about as far as like the story for both organizations when you get to internationals and you just feel uneasy for both of them. I do think like Top, especially their early game is just crazy insane. It's so good. So if they can kind of like build off that and not like throw as many games, and yeah, it's gonna be great.
Are you worried at all about like because I feel like they kind of just default to so much. You see them just do like any Wukong, like like it's always like these kind of like hard engage mid jungle duo type combos that I just wonder like if teams are prepping for them in best ofs, can that get punished? Because I do feel like their drafting is like a little bit predictable in the style that they want to play.
Personally, I'm not worried because I have thought that is the best style for a lot of teams. And so I just really like that style of drafting. So I wouldn't subtract points until I see them at Worlds.
Yep. It'll be interesting. IG going to be the last team. They are going to be playing T1 in play-ins to kick things off. IG, obviously, most people are going to know Rookie, TheShy. Like, they're going to know this team from winning Worlds back in 2018. They also have a lot of other stars, Wei, Gala, Mako. It's like a very star-studded roster. IG, after that initial era of success, was like pretty trash for a while. Like, they really were struggling as a team, as an organization. And a lot of teams, when they have that, they just kind of like move on from the past. They try to find, a new future type thing. They decided basically coming into this year, they were going to do the opposite. They're going to like wipe the slate clean, try to bring back all the old stars that found them that success. And it did get them to Worlds, at least to play-ins. And I will say, I feel like for portions of the year, TheShy was looking really, really good. I feel like in the regular season for a lot of it, he was looking really, really good. We were kind of getting to see like shades of that former success and that former dominance.
Yeah, he got first team All-Pro top lane for regular season.
Yep, and I felt like he had kind of, it seemed like, oh, you've actually been able to eliminate this like big fault in your gameplay, which is the shy inting and stuff. But then we went into playoffs, and I feel like he was just back to his old tricks, and so. I don't know. This team, I just feel like is very, very unpredictable. I think that if you're looking at them in playoffs, they look massively worse than T1. I think they are big underdogs. We know that these are some of the like most famous players who have incredibly high peaks, but the team just feels pretty wildly inconsistent still. And I feel like Mako, you can see his mechanics are definitely a lot worse than they used to be. Some of the players aren't quite where they were.
Hey, everybody except Gala.
Yeah,
Gala's got his mechanics on point though. So Gala, I'm like, all right.
In playoffs, he was dragging them across the finish line.
If they're gonna win versus T1, like if they make it past play-ins, you you can already kind of see it, right? You're like, okay, so Gala's getting one Kai'Sa game, and he's gonna get like a Kalista game.
He's the GOAT Kai'Sa.
He's gonna have
sure.
he's gonna have like some hyper carry type stuff going on. Because I think Mako is still like really smart about the game. But yeah, maybe not the mechanics. Wei as well, like his mechanics aren't that great either. So he's playing a lot of utility stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like Owner versus Wei is going to be like probably the biggest individual gap with how they have recently both of those players have been looking. Although, you never know with TheShy. I'm certain that he's not actually intentionally doing it, but he does make it look.
But he looks like
he makes it look really funny sometimes. So like him versus Doran could like either way. I don't know. I mean, could go big gap either way.
Wei, I feel like is just clearly a tier below the top LPL junglers. You know, like when you see him playing against your Tarzans and your Kanavis and guys like this, you're like, well. You're not like bad, but you're not that good, right?
Yeah.
Like he's kind of like feels more middle of the packy. And I don't know where you guys are at this, but I know a lot of people, a lot of pros that I've spoken to, a lot of coaches feel like currently jungle is the most important role in pro play. And so a lot of people are feeling like it's very, very hard for a team who doesn't have a jungler that can match up to that top Eastern level to actually have a realistic chance of succeeding internationally.
Yeah, as far as which is most important, I feel like that's always really hard.
So opinion.
Historically, I've always
historically.
Yeah, historically, I've always been mid lane. Jungle obviously has huge effects across roles, but I do feel like to people making that point right now, the meta is like you're saying, you can play almost every style of jungle. So that like it's definitely a very good argument for being the most important role because you can be the carry. Or you can still build for being the tank, or you can now, especially with some of the AP changes to some of those champions we were going over in previous patches, maybe we start to see more of those angles. So
yeah, I mean, jungle definitely matters a lot. And then I think also just having a team that's like on the same page as jungle, because you can make arguments for like any role, because obviously every role matters a lot. I think if you have two teams that's like even in every regard except a support, like the support. Especially for teams that are good at everything matters a lot because they're able to like understand how to use the vision. The support gets better and follow up on like the engages and stuff. But
100%.
Yeah.
And they're all like a second jungler a lot too. Like the best supports put out so much extra pressure and they also allow your jungle to do more things.
Yep.
So it's like a force multiplier on your jungler, plus then they have their own duties.
Yep, absolutely. Well, I think those are the kind of obviously big favorites, the Eastern teams. We're going to start blasting through some of these other teams. We're going to cover the LEC teams as well as the LCP teams. For EU, it does feel like, once again, the big hope is going to be G2. People are feeling kind of like much more confident. A lot of my European friends have been pretty beat down over these last couple of years. They were, the only big region to never make it out of Swiss stage back-to-back years. G2 have been getting smacked around, but it does feel like after this playoffs run, people are starting to feel once again confident in G2. They seem to have kind of found their swagger a little bit. They're doing some cool stuff with like these niche picks. Like they love the Kled and the Scion in various matchups.
And Volibear, come on. You see, they found the way. They saw the light. Skewmon is
He was watching Kobe VODs. He was studying up.
Yeah, I feel bad for him because then they had to nerf it. Like, dang, G2's getting too powerful.
Yeah.
I think that's a big story though. Skewmon and Labrov, improving a lot for this squad because, I mean, at MSI, we were consoling our European brothers a lot, and they were, and G2 is getting memed on for like, we're making changes for international success, and then everyone was like, well, these new guys coming in are not looking like it right now. No. But the split now, it feels like so much more confidence is there from both Skewmon and Labrov, and it makes the team look better overall because support and jungle, we were kind of just talking about as being really big playmaker roles. And so Caps and Broken Blade, it feels like they're more relaxed now because they don't have to be forcing so much stuff. I like to see G2, especially when they are picking like champions that other people, don't necessarily play, like making Kled comps all the time and knowing that Volibear is good type of stuff. I was like, all right, G2's on some real stuff.
I also just really like that. I think part of the problem that some teams have where they have these niche picks, it's like I'm a top laner and I'm really good at Nidalee, right? And it's like 5th pick, we need Engage, like this is a really good Nidalee.
Trust me.
Lock me Nidalee, like trust me, I'll just carry it.
I'm
right?
gonna carry this game.
And I'm just like, oh my God. Like in isolation, the pick is good, but it's like, how are you supposed to play? And I feel like G2 does a really good job of taking these kind of like niche picks and then actually building a composition around it that makes sense, right? And you're like, oh, like Kled is in this. That's weird for pro play.
With an engaged support, with like a jungle that wants to engage. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, but it works. Like you can see what the way to actually play out the team fights is and stuff. So I feel like that's really cool.
Okay, what about Warwick comps and Warwick at MSI for Broken?
Warwick at MSI, there was no comps that was fitting in. I think
that was unnecessary. I'm sorry.
No, it was necessary. This is a North American podcast. That was good. Good callback. Yeah, I mean, and he was doing stuff like Zach Top, and he has had his Mundo games, and he's brought out Set. Like, he's brought out a lot of stuff. I feel like BB's cooking, and that's pretty cool. So it'll be fun. I think Hans has been a lot more consistent, like consistently good in the LEC this split too. G2 really has kind of stepped it up. You know, the question is always, is that going to translate to international play, or is it that you're doing it against easier competition? Like, that is always the hard question when a team looks really good regionally. But Europe in general was interesting this year because there was like 3 different champions, right? And normally it's just G2 running the show like all year long. We had KC win and go to first stand. We had MKOI win for MSI, and now we had split 3 G2 win. So it's been pretty cool. And as a result, I'm definitely excited to see how G2 does, and hoping that we get maybe a potential rematch between them and Fly, because we smacked them at MSI.
I know like a lot of Europeans are like still worried. As an unbiased outside viewer, I am a little worried for us. I'm a little worried for us actually, because I think G2 do look legitimately like a lot stronger.
Yeah,
so
I think so too.
You know, last time around, I've felt super confident, and FlyQuest did us proud at MSI. And this time
they're still going to do us proud.
This time around, they're still going to do us proud. We're still going to win, but G2 is going to be
maybe we'll give them a game.
G2 is going to be a stronger opponent, so it'll feel better for us.
Yeah,
when we do.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect.
Yeah, it'll be cool. MKOI is the number 2 seed. They're going to be coming. JoJo, obviously, it's been really fun watching him, but I do think that the big story is kind of like Elioya. I feel like this team is a lot about support jungle. Alvaro, I think, was kind of like, felt like, I want to say, almost the lone shining light for them at MSI. I felt like he was having some really, really good engages, and I think Elioya is kind of like the big star on the team. I do find this team really interesting because I think Supa has gotten better. As Supa has gotten better, it feels like Mirwin, I don't think was ever like amazing, but I feel like he kind of lost his identity, and I don't know if this was just like a conscious choice from the team, but like he used to be the like weird picks guy to me, and he always had these kind of like, cool counter picks and stuff. And I feel like they've moved pretty heavily away from that and into just playing, all right, we're just going to play like, kind of like meta stuff. And maybe that is just the correct decision because you have JoJo, who's been like doing really well for the team in mid lane. You have Supa, who's playing a lot better in bot lane. Like, not everyone needs to be the carry, and maybe that is kind of like the thought process. But I feel like he has lost that niche a little bit, and he plays like a lot more standard stuff these days. But it's definitely a strong team. I think Elioya is one of the, like when I talk about jungle being so important and you need to be able to match up with some of the top junglers, I feel like Elioya at his best can match up with some of the top Eastern junglers. I feel like something that is really impressive about him is he just always seems to find a way, regardless of champion that he's playing, to impact the early game. And I think as a result, like their early game is really, really strong. They almost always seem to be able to create leads. Whether he's playing Wukong or Nocturne or whatever, like he seems to find some way to get behind a laner and force a flash or get a kill or do something. And they don't seem to make like a ton of mistakes in like their setups or team fights. So like I feel like this is one of those teams that is kind of like, you have to be this tall to ride, right? Like you have to be this good to beat them. You're not just going to like fluke them out, or they're not just going to throw super hard. They seem like they've become pretty consistent, play pretty standard, but do it well.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Supa's looking pretty good. I'm always a fan of JoJo, and think that he's doing good over there. Always supporting our boy in EU. Merwin, I really have always liked when he pulls out more of the, like you're saying, like flavorful, counter picks and stuff that have a,
You're not these bland
special
white
flair.
bread Scion picks.
Yeah, I mean, he threw in the one Varus game, but they lost anyway. But I think
no more off meta picks if you feed on Varus top.
at international, I definitely will foresee them still being like, all right, we're versus, X crazy strong team or whatever, right? So I think this is definitely a team that can still cook. And hopefully, I mean, that's what I like to see is super exciting. Like when G2 were at their best and was like leading Europe and stuff, they were cooking all the time on comps and champs and stuff.
Is Mirren good enough to justify that? That's kind of my question, right? Like when G2 were that good, it was like Wonder made sense to play. It made sense to play around him playing Pike top or whatever because he was good enough to like make that make sense. I feel like Mirren isn't. That's kind of like my concern with his crazy picks is I feel like he's just kind of like the standard like more now. I mean, it's not like he doesn't do any weird picks, but I feel like he was doing that a lot more before.
Yeah.
And he's like picked up the Scion more and picked up the Gwen. He's kind of like playing more of the standard stuff. Yeah, so like I guess it's just like, is it even correct for them to do it when their other lanes seem stronger?
So my pitch is again at internationals when you're faced a super strong team, like, oh, so we've already lost, a couple of these games doing
Time to get weird.
Yeah, now it's like, all right. And I think it is good to like have the extra gear to go to.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
When you bring out the Nidalee.
making Cassante look broken as ever. So we shall see.
Yep. We got to talk about Fnatic. Fnatic, I feel like is just, this team is so up and down. It's crazy. You have...
There's always drama with this team too. Everyone's always like, you hear a little whisper here, a little whisper there.
Yeah, it definitely does seem that way. I mean, when they picked up Poby, I feel like everyone was kind of just like, what the hell? Like, what are we doing here, guys? Like,
the memes are so good.
Yeah, some roads lead to him, the killable demon prince, like all the Poby memes are really funny. But this team is just so up and down that you really don't know. Like they could lose every single game, or they could randomly beat a good team. Like Oscar, I feel like this guy is so wildly inconsistent. Like they have their series against KC where he's just all of a sudden he's just like prime bin and just like chain solo killing Kana and stuff. And then the next day he's playing against Merwin and just getting absolutely dumpstered, like running it down as fast as possible. It's just like, it's crazy how up and down his performances are. And I feel like it is really hard to have that when you're going into an international, right? Like to have a player who could just like solo lose you a game or games in a series against an Eastern team or a team that's favored against you.
Yeah, I legit have seen almost nobody rank this team high coming into Worlds because of that.
Worlds is really hard.
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of hope coming back for G2 for Europe.
Yeah.
And for MKOI, a decent amount there too. But I think it totally stops there, and everyone's like, all right, this. If something happens here for Fnatic, it would be really impressive, and it truly would be an upset.
Yeah, I mean, gonna be cool to see Poby. Maybe he'll get a matchup against Faker.
That'd be really funny.
And then just dumpster him in traditional script fashion.
I mean, it is cool because like it does seem like he has actually fit in way better than people thought he was going to fit in. If you're talking about all the memes and stuff, I do think he fits in better than everyone thought he was going to with this team. And we were talking to the European casters and stuff, and they absolutely love him. His like attitude, it reminded me of the way that we talk about like Sniper, and how when Sniper came in, it was like just so cool because he like lifted the whole atmosphere when he was so happy, and like he walked down the hall and would just be talkative and ready for any interview and stuff. And that's the way that like the European casters were talking about Poby. They're like, yeah, he's really good vibes. And his English is not a problem at all. It's really good. And he talks a lot in their comms, and does a lot of like macro calling and stuff for them too. And so like, that's really good to hear. I always really enjoy watching Mickey. He definitely does have some flip potential as well. Some good, some bad, but he is creative. And so it's, as much as like it does seem like there is like a steep drop off in confidence here for this team, I also still think it's going to be definitely a fun one to watch.
Yeah. I mean, I just feel like all these players love to be like so almost like a small lead is not enough. Like they just want to like keep pushing it to where if it works, they look amazing. And when it doesn't, it looks so bad. Like Razark, I feel like he'll get an advantage and then he's like, but I want to steal away this camp too. And it's like, but you don't have pushing lanes, right? You know, and they'll collapse on them and kill them and things like that. It's like always that extra step that seems to get punished from Fnatic. But will be interesting to see how they do. We have the LCP teams now. We can start with CFO because CFO, I think people are really realizing now this team is a real threat. They should be looked at as a very, very good team. You know, in MSI, coming in MSI, there had been that kind of like story that knowledge floating around that, you know, they were getting some scrims with the LPL teams, but from my understanding, it was with like bottom LPL teams and like only sometimes middle or whatever. And now this split, from what I've heard, is they scrim against the very top LPL teams every day. And so it's like they have one of the best practice environments in the world now, right? Like it doesn't matter what league you're playing in, if all of your practice is against the top LPL teams, you have just as much of an advantage in your practice as like BLG does or whatever. So I feel like this team has really, really a good chance to surprise some people. And like, I don't think that, you know, saying that they could, like, you could totally expect them to make quarters. And I think that's reasonable, right? Like, I think that they should be looked at as a knockouts team.
Yeah, because I mean, they showed it with so far this year with international competition. They've been very impressive in it, and I think a lot of improvement for this split, especially for Honkyu. Maybe he gained the most or a lot from you know, all this top tier scrimming, but this is a guy that we were hyping up because he's so young, and you know, it's like you get to talk about the next generation of fakers. Everybody's always looking for the next ones, but he's absolutely popping off. So I feel like this team actually got a lot of fans. You're starting at first stand and just like growing over the course of this year because of not only how competitive they have been internationally, but also the personalities of the players. Everybody loves Driver. Everybody loves Driver doing the dances afterwards. They are still, by the way, doing their swap with Rest. Although
they shouldn't be.
Talking to some of the LCP reps, you know, they're like, they've also like made this attempt to more converge their champion pools.
Yep.
And they were saying, Driver's solo queue has just been putting a ton of work in on Ambessa and Gwen, you know, type stuff, whereas he used to be, you know, much more for the tanks and the Sion and stuff, and Rest as well, doing his part, trying to converge his champion pool. And so, they're still doing the swaps.
I think Rest is just straight up worse, though. Every time I watch, I'm like, Rest should just not be playing. Like, I don't think the 6-man roster makes any sense at all. I almost never see a game where I'm like, that was great that Rest was in. And when I talk about like weaknesses of this team, I mean, they should be getting hyped. They went 5 games at MSI against T1. Like, that's crazy, right? But I do think that Junja is not as dominant as he had been in the LCP. And I think top lane is definitely a big liability, you know, at times. I think Driver's actually really good. But until he is actually showing that he plays all this different stuff on stage, what a lot of teams in LCP now are doing is you put in Rest, they just ban the Rest champs. You put in Driver, they just ban the Driver champs because they don't play the other stuff and they don't really practice it that much. So it's like you're just making it so easy when you have, you know, these niche picks, especially it's like you're going game 3, game 4, a couple of Rest picks could be gone or whatever, and then you sub them in, everyone just knows, okay, these are his couple good ones, they ban them out, and then the top lane can kind of get like into a difficult situation. So I feel like it's kind of to their detriment right now, in my opinion, that they're doing this 6-man. We'll see how it actually pans out at Worlds. I will say fearless stuff doesn't really matter for most of it because it's a lot of best of 1s in Swiss. It's just like the one best of 3 to actually get out of Swiss. So I don't think you can pinch people's champion pools super hard in best of 3s, and you can't do it at all in best of 1s. So that might not be an issue for them for Swiss, but definitely if they make it to best of 5s, I think that is going to be a concern for them for sure.
Yeah, I think they're very dangerous. So as our tier of like, Western reps and the EU reps and stuff. I think
they're on the tier of the top teams.
Yeah, I think we should all be very scared,
Yep.
as far as those matchups. And then, even some of the lower seeds from the Eastern
and the top LPL and LCK teams should know the team name.
Yeah.
They should know that they exist. and that's where we're going to put that.
And us as well.
Yeah.
They should know that we exist. They know we exist.
They know we exist.
We've been taking them to 5 games. Genji knows us.
Like I said,
knows us.
They know. They know. They don't think they're going to lose, but they know about us. They've heard.
Yeah.
Team Secret Wales is going to be coming in next. This is Hero 02, Hizto, Dyer, Eddie, and Taki. This is kind of a funny team for me to watch. I was pretty impressed by Hero 02 and Hizto. I feel like they were kind of shining, at least in the games that I've seen. I haven't watched a tremendous amount of Secret Wales. But I will say Eddie was kind of cracking me up in some of the games that they play because his team fighting was pretty good. But this guy is like the LCP Jackie Love, but like worse. Like the places he is getting caught in and stuff. I'm like, brother, like, why are we walking here? This guy is just like randomly walking through the jungle, like between, they have no wards. Everyone's missing. He just wanders the most dangerous path every time, it feels like. So he was definitely deserving of some question mark banks.
I did like how much they fight, though.
Yeah.
And this is the youngest team overall at the tournament, as well as having they have 2 18-year-olds on their team, and so they kind of embody that youthful exuberance, and they fight a lot. How they attack some of the objectives was actually still really good, though. Sometimes there's there's a team that just fights all the time, no matter what, right? And they don't, really approach the objective well or pull it back when necessary, type of things. And so I do like that. It's their games are action packed, but they also still do a lot of good, approaches to objectives and stuff. So I'm super excited. And from the Vietnamese perspective, it's wow, this is the merger of Team Wales and Team Secret, and then finally getting to go and rep over GAM is really big and huge, and Vietnam always has such a huge fan base, so
yep.
It's a super cool opportunity for some really young players to make a big splash. And it's definitely one of those ones too where oh yeah, sometimes people come in underestimating you and you fight them a bunch and you win, and can definitely see them throwing some heavy punches.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely a fun team. They're a super young team. Hizto, I think, is the youngest starting player of anyone at Worlds. Hizto and Dyer, I know, played on the Baby Whales as their academy team, whatever.
Cute
together,
name, by the way.
Which is very cute. So they have a lot of really, really young players, and they are that big Vietnamese style that people used to associate. GAM in more modern years is more methodical and slow, and they just kind of outscale you. But when VCS first kind of burst on the scene, everyone just thought of them as super bloody, action-packed, nonstop fighting, and that is kind of this team. And it's really kind of fun to watch as a result. And I will say, this was the only team that was really beating CFO at all in their regular season. So they are competing with them. In the big moments, it seemed like they weren't able to kind of get it done, but it maybe makes sense with a lot of young players. Another thing I have heard about this team when I was talking to someone from the region, they were saying that basically they felt like this team's ceiling is just insane, and that they talked about kind of unteachables, and they're this team has all the unteachables. They have all the mechanics, they have all the instinct, they have all these things.
And they're just gonna catch up on the teachables now.
Exactly. All the things that they suck at are the things that they're that's what the coaches actually know and can teach you. Yeah. And so people were pretty excited about the potential of this team, in hey, you shouldn't go here at this time, or hey, put a ward in this place or whatever, right? So it'll be interesting to see how they perform. The last team, PSG Talon, is back. At the start of the year, they actually had Fofo. Maple had retired, but Maple, seeing what happened to MSI and everything, he decided to come back. I think it was after MSI, right? Or was it after First Stand? I think Maple came back after MSI, but we'd have to double check. But this is kind of like the reunion of this old PSG Talon team. A lot of names I think people will know. It's Aja, Karsa, Maple, Betty, and Woody. So it is kind of the reunion of a lot of these big names that people do know. I do think they, at least in the games that I've seen them, definitely did not look anywhere up to the kind of their old standards. And, Maple had taken some time off. I feel like the players are going to struggle at Worlds, like at Worlds level competition, because from what I had seen, it definitely did not seem like they were up to the same level of kind of like, Secret Whales or CFO. Yeah,
kind of a similar thing, like their age. It feels like their age, it's kind of mean, but it feels like the age kind of shows or whatever.
Yeah.
With this squad, but like it's cool to have a Flash Wolves revival team, because a lot of viewers are also old. Let's admit it. Me
We're
too.
Old.
As me too. And it's so cool to see Maple return, Karsa return, and you like they still have a lot of possibilities, and good things going for them. So, I don't think they're going to be able to like, be Flash Wolves, part 2 and like, take down some super big Korean teams or anything. But it is nice to see, especially Karsa. I feel like, playing well.
Yeah, I think it always helps to put into perspective like how good the new players are too. When you get to see rosters like, this new Flash Wolves with Maple coming back and like IG bringing back TheShy and Rookie, because you'll be able to see like, even if they get blasted, it'll kind of put into perspective like how good the new guys are as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Worlds is going to be an absolute blast. We're going to be heading out for it. We'll do an episode next week. Next week, Meteos and I will be remote because I'm not going out for the first week. I'm staying home to get a little bit of time with my baby before I go. But Kobe's flying out for the very start.
I'm flying out on Friday.
You're flying on Friday.
24 hours of travel time.
Yep, and I'll be there about a week after. So I'll see you there, buddy. And that should be a lot of fun. But we're going to head to a break, and then we're going to be right back with Rob Moore, the CEO of Sentinels, the newest team for the LCS next year.
Ready, set, go!
I'm at 47%.
Oh, I'm on 63%.
Man, I'm at 50%.
Boom! 80%. Winner!
The Kia EV9 can go from 10% charge to 80% charge in just 24 minutes with DC fast charging.
Welcome back to The Dive, driven by Kia. We are now joined by Rob Moore, CEO of Sentinels, the newest team joining the LCS in 2026. Thank you for joining us, Rob.
Thank you so much for having me. It's very exciting.
And by us, he means the LCS.
Yes. Not the LTA.
We were thinking about coming back to League, but we weren't coming back until the LCS.
That's a good choice.
It's good leverage. That's why they did it.
So talk to me about why Sentinels is joining now.
Well, I think in terms of our org and where we've been and what we've done, the management team that was originally part of Phoenix One, so those of you who were fans back in the summer of 2016, it was the first game we were ever in. We had some high highs and some low lows during that run, but it was a lot of fun. And then we rebranded and reset in 2018 and really focused on getting into the newest games and really trying to make a big splash in those games. Because one thing that was hard for us then is chasing people like TSM and Cloud9. And so in a game like Fortnite, where Booga was with Sentinels when he won the World Cup, or then Valorant, which really was the big coming together for us, where we then won the first major international tournament in that game. And then, so as we look at now our brand and where to grow, it felt unnatural that there are two games out there that people are always asking me about. And it's either Counter-Strike or League of Legends. And when are you getting to those games? And so a very unique opportunity came up for us as 100 Thieves was leaving. And so the timing seemed perfect for us and the league for us to join.
That's awesome. So, what do you think you have learned from like your previous experience with Phoenix One that you would want to repeat, and what would you want to avoid doing from last time? Like kind of, so what was like you think you did well or maybe poorly?
Well, I think the funny thing is some of it was not on the competitive side, but on the marketing side. I think we really found our tone of voice since then. And any of you who have been fans of Sentinels, who follow Valorant, we have a very wry sense of humor. We can troll people. We're happy to get trolled. Like, we don't take things personally. I personally have a rivalry with the G2 fan base. So it's not beyond me to troll them if their Counter-Strike team bombs out of a tournament. I will take to Twitter to say, wait, when does G2 Counter-Strike play?
Yeah.
I will say the first time I bit my lip was when G2 just bombed out of champs, because we had bombed out of champs before them. So I didn't troll
That's the
them.
perfect time to.
So normally I would, but I did feel bad.
That's when you hit them with the "see you guys on the plane," or
Exactly. But you'll notice in our press release, there's one very random factoid in our press release, which was in 2017 was the first Rift Rivals.
Yeah.
We were part of the NA group.
yeah.
And so we went 4-2 in Rift Rivals.
Let's go.
North
Like
America
that.
brought home the crown.
Yes, sir.
And our run against G2 at Rift Rivals, we're undefeated against G2.
Perfect. That was the
So-
Mike Young era, wasn't it?
It was
Yeah.
the Mike Young.
Yeah, I
era,
remember
exactly.
Mike Young Nidalee was popping off.
Mike Young
I believe,
Nidalee
at the
popping
time.
off at Rift Rivals.
Yeah.
He was rookie of the split. And so we do point out that we're undefeated against G2. And I do have to say, if FlyQuest
I like that.
If FlyQuest doesn't go farther than G2 at Worlds, we then will come after both of FlyQuest fans. And we will try and take both of their fans away.
Well, we have been doing pretty well as a region versus G2, I gotta say. Energy
sir.
beat them up, FlyQuest 3-0'd them.
Nothing makes me happier. Especially G2 and Valorant pretends to be NA, even though they're obviously based in Berlin. So they're fake NA. So like NRG just won Valorant champs. Totally happy for them.
Yeah.
And that was great. But G2, I'd like them never to win a trophy, which, by the way, they haven't won one.
Okay.
And it's kind of a thing between me and the G2 fans
Yeah.
of me constantly saying, hey, we have 2 trophies from international events.
Yeah.
How many do you have? Because they did.
I love that.
Because to their credit, at the domestic front this year, they were dominant.
Yeah.
Beat us twice in the finals of domestic. But they still do not have an international trophy, and I celebrate that every day.
There you go.
That's going to be one of the biggest things on fans' minds. With the new team coming in, what type of team are you going to build this to be? Is it going to be built for immediate success? Are you going to try and get a roster that is like long-term, build up some rookies? Or are you coming in and you want international success right off the bat?
Well, I think it's unrealistic to think you can do that quickly, because even in Valorant, we were in Valorant for 2 years before the partnership program. And then there was a big reset because there was a lot of players who became free agents. And so we built what everybody thought was a super team in Valorant, where we had 2 teams from the defending world champ, 2 players from the defending world champs, 2 players from a team that came in 4th, and then our own superstar 10s. And that team came in 7th place and did nothing. But then in that offseason, we made 2 roster changes and then went on a run where we won the first domestic event and then went and won the next international event. So I think as we look at building a team, that for us, it really says 2026 has to be about finding a core with then the ability to say, okay, who are those players we need to pick up that can take us that next step and then hopefully get us to an international event in 27. I think that's the realistic.
Yeah.
And even as our own run with Phoenix One, that our first run was basically about not getting relegated. But then in that offseason, we picked up Arrow and Ryu, who were 2 players popping off in Korea. And then midseason, you may not know this, but midseason, Meteos joined us. I think we were 3-3 or 4-4 at the time. And then we went on like a 7-1 run. And then ultimately came in third. It was the Dark Meteos era.
Yeah, that was a funny time for me, because I remember coming off 2016. That was where we had the C9 Worlds run that didn't go too great. People were memeing on my Lee Sin, which I still hear about every day.
I cast that game.
The 16 minutes.
I still hear about it every single
Wasn't
day.
it like 80 minutes? It was
It was 60.
It was the kick was at like 66 minutes.
Okay, yeah.
Which it's crazy to think games for that long. Anyway. So after that year, I had some like real life stuff going on, and I decided I wasn't gonna play 2017. Just wanted to like take a break, kind of like mental reset. And so I wasn't even playing League or anything, and I was just chilling. And then I remember Jack came to me a few weeks into the season and is like, hey, P1 needs a sub for this weekend. And like they reached out to see if you were available. And I was like, nah, I'm good. And then a few days later, he reached out again. He's like, hey, like they really need someone. It's like a desperate situation. I think this would be good for like you, because you got nothing to lose. And I was like, all right, you know what, fine. If they really need someone, I'll play. And then, so I come into play, and then our first match is against Cloud9, and they were like 8-0 coming into that week, just dominating everyone. And I was just like, dude, what? Like, I'm not even playing a league. I'm coming into a team I've never played with, and we're playing against my former team who's undefeated. I'm
Who's
just
about
like,
to stomp you.
yeah, like what is this? And then, of course, because I had some protagonist energy going on, we won. And yeah, it was just a really fun split because it was one of those splits where like it didn't make any sense, right? It was like I'm not practicing the game, and I had never scrimmed with the team at all. I barely knew the people on the team, but I think it was just due to the situation. Everyone was like very accommodating of me, and they had a lot of trust in my ability. So it just kind of worked out. And I think, yeah, we won like most of our matches that I played. And it was just a super good time for me because it was like, it just didn't make any sense, but it worked out.
It was probably because the CEO at the time, right, of the
of
Phoenix won that.
That's what I was thinking. I just didn't outright say it.
I think we went 7-1 or 7-2 during that time. Maybe Jack was trying to sabotage us. He's like, yes, they're playing the game. Here, sub in for them.
It was actually so funny, though, because I clearly remember all our storylines for broadcast when this happened, because we also had, for some reason, the lighting on that day was also like really shadowy on Meteos, and so he like looked all like dark and sinister, and he was coming in, and we had all these stories like, yeah, Meteos hasn't even been playing. It's like, he doesn't want to do his homework. He's not going to practice for the test. He's going to show up on the day, and then they win, and it was just like the actual like most aura farming comes in, dark Meteos. Everyone's popping off with memes, and it's just like the craziest time.
Our jerseys were black. It was the full.
Yeah, it was like the black and fiery. I really like those people in jerseys.
When you were on C9, you had like the bleach blonde hair too.
Yeah.
Right? And then that was the first time you came out with like dark hair, dark jersey. Like.
Yeah, it was definitely an interesting thing because I remember like the way it was pitched to me from Jack is like, I don't know if it was fully how the situation was, but it was sounded like, there was like a visa issue, and it was like a very temporary thing where like they just need someone for a weekend. So I was like, okay, like I was upfront with everything. I'm like, I'm probably not the guy you want on your team. Like, I'm barely playing the game right now. There's probably someone better, but if you need me to play, I will play. And I had been saying that, and then they just like kept at, we're like, hey, that was great. You want to come do it again next week? And I was like, I mean, I will show up, but I'm not doing much more than that. I'm not the ideal pro player right now. I was very forthcoming with that, but somehow it worked out, so it was a good time.
The problem is that was fairly early in my life in League, and the problem is he has ruined for all future junglers their ability to shine because he has an ability that few junglers have to know exactly when you can and cannot take Baron. And so when he was on the team, anytime we took Baron, we scooted off. It was all good. Yeah. He leaves, and next thing you know, it's like, why do we keep throwing at Baron? Why do we win a fight and then all go die at Baron? What is happening? And it's like, wait, we've lost Meteos. We lost the power of Meteos.
That's funny.
But our biggest moment, you actually were part of, which is the very first season. So Jerry Greenberg, who's my partner in all this, he and I were trying to like get into esports. We were crazy. We thought that was a good idea. But here we are 9 years later. Mm-hmm. And so there was a team that needed to be sold, and Eric Ma, who is now I've been in business together with ever since, he went and basically bought the team that needed to be sold and then basically brought it to me. And I said, well, the season starts in 2-3 weeks. Can you get a roster together that won't get relegated? Mm-hmm. And so he came back the next day with a budget and a roster. And so we lost our first, and I saw this on broadcast because they were memeing on us recently because DSG was threatening our record of the most consecutive losses in the Start A split. And so I think we lost maybe our first 10 matches. I'm trying to remember what DSG got to. I think maybe it was 8, and then they won that day. So we're now 3-11, and we're playing TSM, who is 14-0. And you were on the cast that day. And I will say it's probably of all the esports matches we've been involved in, the one I've gone back and watched the most because it's just so crazy. And the way the crowd's reacting, the way you're all now reacting, it's like we're winning worlds the way the reaction is. And we ruined TSM's perfect split. And it ends up being their only loss in that split. And so that was kind of that moment of like
Was
the
that-
magic of what can happen.
Was that with Inori, the
Yeah, it was
Rengar
the
game?
Inori
That was the
Rengar.
Rengar game. Oh my
Yeah.
god, I still remember that game. That's actually crazy. Because you had earlier you had mentioned that I cast that game, but it just clicked with me. I still remember that game because Rengar wasn't even popular at all at the time, and he just had like a monster Rengar game and like hard carry. That was a crazy.
Yes, and our mid laner at that point was Pyrian, who, fun fact, in the like worst year Faker ever had, Faker got benched for a few matches. And do you know who replaced Faker?
Pyrian, yeah.
Pyrian
Yeah, I
did.
remember, yeah.
I always joke because Charlie Lipsy, who still works with me, was the coach that first year.
Yeah.
And I always troll him because I'm like, wait, we had the guy who replaced Faker and you couldn't win with him.
That's funny. One question I'm curious about is, what do you think you'll do different than other teams to try to build a fan base? Because I think something a lot of teams that have come into the LCS over the years have struggled with is kind of building a fan base by doing something other than just winning, right? Everyone kind of seems to come in and they're like, well, our plan to get fans is to win the LCS, you know? And I think it's difficult for teams to sometimes differentiate themselves from all the other teams, you know? So that's, I feel like, a big challenge, especially if you're not trying to go like all in.
Absolutely. So I think for us, in terms of the way we've approached since we launched Sentinels, is really to say, this is supposed to be entertaining. This is supposed to be fun. It's video games. We're not solving the world's problems. We're hopefully entertaining people. And so our ambition is we're entertaining, win or lose. And that we're happy to troll people. We're happy to be trolled. And we're happy to be very authentic, that we are our entire staff are gamers, right? Like there's a lot of orgs that at some point private equity came in and kind of forced them to hire non-gamers. Everybody who works for me is a gamer. Like it's the one challenge at times is I can't get anybody to respond to a message.
A new game launches, everyone puts in PTO.
I can get responses at midnight, but if I say to somebody at 10 a.m., hey, can I get this answer? So we have a company full of gamers who are really passionate. So you get very authentic commentary and content and dialogue. And so we have a way to insert ourselves into matches that don't involve us and be interesting. So like, let's say FlyQuest is playing G2. We will have more fun because, first of all, it's not our match to lose, but we will create stakes that will be invested in for us and our fans to ride along as we continue our obsession with G2 never winning. So we have some of those elements. And then in terms of the content we'll create, we'll try and have fun. Like because I will leak one thing, like we have started talking to coaches because they will definitely be a big part of how we start to build a roster. And so one of those conversations is already about content and what content are you comfortable with. So like I pitched a coach a piece of content to say, would you be okay with this? And so now I know somehow last week he became a controversial figure, even though he seems to be one of the most entertaining people in League. But I said, okay, what if we had the video where Kadril, because that's what he does when he streams, is nobody is more aggressive about handicapping, reviewing real time, and criticizing your draft and saying they should be doing this. They didn't do this. I go, how would you feel about a piece of content where we had someone like Kadril who's literally reviewing your draft, and then you come and basically do the piece of content where you're saying why you did what you did, or you say, wow, he was right, I screwed this up.
That's cool.
And so trying to find ways to give fans that interaction where you aren't trying to basically hide from fans to say we're always going to make the right decision versus saying, hey, you can kind of understand these players, you can get inside their heads, sometimes we will make mistakes. But at the same time, we will share that with you and you'll be part of this journey with us.
That's really cool.
So that coach definitely said, yeah, they'd be okay with it, right?
Yes. Now, I will say what people often say, and this is what Charlie would say when I would give him a hard time for his bad drafts, right? Because you do have that dynamic, which can be, which you know, because I'll tell a Meteos story here, which you know where a player at some point just says, let me play Zach. And I will win. Zach may not be in the meta and nobody's playing it and we haven't scrimmed with it, but trust me, let me play Zach, right? So you do have that dynamic in a draft where a player just flat out says, this may be the OP champion that's not what I want to play, right? So you do have that dynamic sometimes.
I really like that you have content as part of your interview process, though, because that definitely is something that players, coaches, you know, parts of these organizations do kind of lose sight of. It is like we're an entertainment product.
Yeah, it is, because we've had people, because also for us, and at this point, like I said, Valorant, we had the great fortune of winning the first major, and then developing the player who became the most popular player in the game with TenZ. And so there are players who've come into the org and then they're just kind of shocked of like, wait, I have to talk about a loss, and wait, you're putting out the team comms when we're like tilting on each other and people are going to see that? And we're like, yes. And they're just kind of like, or they're like not wanting to ever respond on Twitter to like, or engage with fans when you lose. And so that is a huge part of our brand and why we've been able to build a fan base. Because that is the way we participate in it. So that is our hope, that in League we can bring that same combination of trying to win but having fun along the way.
So since you brought up TenZ, I know you guys split recently, but everyone was wondering, do you still have his phone number? Is he going to like co-stream your games? Because TenZ plays a lot of League. I've talked to him about it before. Like he still is, passionate and plays League. So.
He watch partied last year's Worlds, I believe.
Yeah.
Here's the one thing I will say. 3 weeks ago, the entire building is in Paris, right? For champs, where we had a very bad champs. But I'm sitting in my office. There's nobody in the building. And out of nowhere, a voice says, "Hey, Rob." And I get the biggest jump scare. And do you know who that person who walked into my office was?
It's got to be TenZ.
It is TenZ, who still has the pass key to the office. He can show up at the office anytime. So, yes, if TenZ wants to like take a shot, we would absolutely be part of that. Now, I think his more likely participation would maybe be to watch party our first match. But he is definitely a forever part of our org.
That's awesome. To talk about roster building a little bit, I feel like the old school philosophy used to just be like import all the biggest stars and like that's where you start and that's how you win. And I feel like EG kind of started the blueprint with Danny and JoJo, and a lot of teams have kind of emulated this now. It seems the key to success in NA is finding good young NA players, like finding that kind of star NA player and then importing around them to kind of like round out the roster. TL did this with APA and APA and Yan. EG obviously did JoJo and Danny. FlyQuest has like, Masu and Busio and so on, right? So all these teams are kind of, doing that same pattern. Do you think that is the path to success, and kind of like how interested are you guys in like tier 2 and so on in trying to find that kind of next star?
Well, I think just to draw the parallel to what's happening in Valorant right now, and it got a lot of attention this week because we're trialing with our academy players with some of our current roster to say, okay, who are the young players that can make that next step? And I think, as you said, the key, because we're also, right, we're trying to be popular in America, and then we're also trying to win. And so finding that core group of young players, and that's why I'm saying when I think about it, right, there's a lot of trial and error in that process. So it can be that it takes 2 splits, 3 splits to really say, oh, these are the 2-3 guys who've really gelled and their play styles work, right? Because if you have a coach and a shot caller and a jungler who all see the game differently in terms of, I'm super aggro versus I'm saying, no, I want to be more methodical. So you got to find that group that clicks. And then that's when you can bring in someone to say, okay, if we found this jungler or we found this mid laner, this will now put us over the top. So I do think that is a method that makes a lot of sense, and I think where we would probably start.
Awesome.
Yeah, well, that gives me a lot to be excited about. I was definitely sad when I heard 100 Thieves was leaving, because they've been a cool brand, but I think Sentinels is going to be, a great replacement. And I'm super excited for you guys to get involved because, like, the lightheartedness, not taking it too seriously while still trying to win, that's, like, exactly what we need. And, happy to have you guys.
Well, I think the one key thing that we are bringing is, 100 Thieves was always known as the hoodie org. That's just what they were called. We've elevated that. And so what I have brought to this event here is I brought you all jackets.
Okay.
Because we're like the jacket org.
We're not above taking
So
bribes.
I brought, and then the other thing, if you're a fan, you might want to check out the other place where our really dark sense of humor comes out is our mascot, which is Qbert, which may come across as this mild-mannered plushie, but Qbert has a very dark side and spends a lot of time with our coach, who also kind of uses him as a stress ball. But Qbert has his own Twitter account where he does occasionally meme people and flame people. And so, again, part of us trying to say, how can we be fun and entertaining while, as Meteos said, also trying to win.
Yeah.
And so, this year, our Valorant team qualified to every international, didn't win one. Last year, we qualified for 2 out of 3, won one, and came in 4th one. So our ambitions are to bring home championships. And so I know in League, the idea of even saying you're trying to win an international championship would seem a little crazy. So for the short term, how do we win a domestic title will certainly be our focus. And then we'll go from there.
Awesome. Nice. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Rob. Really excited for Sentinels in the LCS next year, 2026. It's going to be a good time. And that is going to wrap it up for us here on The Dive, driven by Kia. Thank you again. Be sure to subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube so you don't miss an episode of The Dive. The promotion relegation tournament is going to finish this Sunday at 1 p.m. Pacific, and Worlds begins next Tuesday at 1 a.m. Pacific, 1 in the morning, with a legendary matchup. It's going to be T1 versus IG, first ever best of 5 between Rookie and Faker. Don't miss out.
Jackets, here we go.
Jackets!
Jacket. That's jacket.
I'll remember this for the power rankings.
Yeah, remember this, yes. For the power rankings.
I'm a fan.